Board members, the time is now 4:57 p.m. and we are live on the channel. The time is now 5 p.m. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us for the board's December action meeting, which is also our organizational meeting. Before we begin, I'd like to say on behalf of the board, we wish everyone in our school communities a safe and happy holiday season. And just a quick reminder, the public comment period for the non-renewal hearings for Universal Charter School at Bluford and Universal Charter School at Daroff will be closing on Monday, December 14th. Comments that anyone might want to send in should be emailed to schoolboard@philasd.org with the subject public comment and the school on which you're commenting. Or you can send your comments to Board of Education, Suite 101, 440 North Broad Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19130. All comments must be received by the end of the day on the 14th in order to be included in the record of the hearing. Now I want to turn it over to Vice President Ahia Hinton to make a general announcement for our guest.
Good evening. At every Board of Education meeting, a representative from the Deaf Hearing Communication Center is here to provide sign language interpretation of the proceedings. The proceedings of this meeting are being streamed live on the internet at www.philasd.org/live and can be seen on PSTV's Comcast Channel 52 and Verizon Fios Channel 20. The proceedings are also being recorded by the School District of Philadelphia. The school district recordings are protected by the copyright laws of the United States and may not be used in any manner without the express written consent of the school district. By participating in tonight's meeting, members of the public acknowledge that the school district may use its recordings for any purpose without obtaining permission or paying any compensation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Vice President Ahia Hinton. Ms. Rauch, please make an announcement about the board's executive sessions and then call the roll.
Thank you, Madam President. The Board of Education met in executive session on December 3rd to discuss personnel matters, and earlier today to discuss personnel matters, information and strategy in connection with the following litigation or threatened litigation matters. The first is AA versus School District of Philadelphia, United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, number 2:16-CV-01684. It's a case alleging a state-created danger theory of action. Next, a threatened litigation alleging district liability based on sexual assault of one student by another student. The next is the PFT versus School District of Philadelphia, Philadelphia County Court of Common Pleas, number 200-102-262. This action is asking the court to confer rights on the PFT regarding district facilities. Then School District of Philadelphia versus the Inquirer, Philadelphia County Court of Common Pleas, number 19100-217. This is a matter involving right to know law issues. Lewis versus School District of Philadelphia, Philadelphia County Court of Common Pleas, number 201-001-239. This is an action by a former employee alleging personal injury. And Chester Community Charter School versus Chester Upland School District, Delaware County Court of Common Pleas, number CV-2012-009781. This is a financial receivership proceeding. The board also discussed privileged and confidential matters and investigations. And now for the roll call, Ms. Danzi,
Present.
Vice President Ahia Hinton,
Present.
Ms. Fix Lopez,
Present.
Mr. Huang,
Present.
Dr. McColgan,
Present.
Dr. MacGyver,
Present.
President Wilkerson,
Present.
Superintendent Height,
Present.
Ms. Alaleye,
Present.
and Ms. Diaz.
Present.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rapp. Board members, before we proceed, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 19th action meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Board members, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. The minutes are adopted. Now going to invite Dr. Height to make opening remarks.
Thank you, Board President Wilkerson. And as noted in last month's action meeting, our plans to begin transitioning to a hybrid learning model are currently on hold, and all students will continue with 100% digital learning until further notice. We're eager to have students return to in-person learning. We remain committed to following the science to make decisions. We continue to track the case rates in Philadelphia, and we are now participating with the Department of Health, Medical, and Docs Medical, CHOP, and the Philadelphia Health Department to provide COVID-19 testing for students and staff. Testing will begin next week in 2 pilot schools where students are in-person learning. We hope this can serve as another step in returning our students to in-person learning. Additionally, we have met or are very close to meeting each of the readiness checkpoints that we can track at this time. We will continue to update our website and provide readiness updates as we begin the process of transitioning into hybrid learning. In the interim, I encourage everyone to follow public health guidance so our students can safely return to in-person learning as soon as possible. I also want to note that our schools and offices, including the Education Center at 440 North Broad, will be closed from December 24th through January 1st. This is with a few exceptions, and those exceptions include our tech support hotline at 215-400-4444 and our 3 technology support centers at Fitzpatrick Annex, MLK High School, and South Philadelphia High School. The hotline and support centers will remain open throughout the holidays, except for Christmas Day and New Year's Day, so that students and families can continue to have district-issued Chromebook repairs and replacements if the needs are there. Additionally, I know that there are several individuals who signed up to speak about CSPR, specifically as it relates to Shepherd School. Just want to reiterate to all the board members and all of the individuals listening that our CSPR process is currently on hold. There have been no recommendations, none for Shepherd or any other schools for that matter. So just wanted to make sure that I was sharing that with the board members. I'm happy to announce that beginning tomorrow, all grab-and-go meals will include fresh fruit and 2 additional meals. This means that all students will receive a grab-and-go meal box, and they will now receive 7 breakfast and 7 lunch meals, fresh fruit and milk for the week. This is great news as we continue the work to ensure that our students get access to the nutritional meals that they would normally receive if they were in schools each day. For the last 9 months, our hardworking food services team has managed to provide upwards of 6 million meals to students, and that work will continue even as we head into the holidays. With all district schools and offices closed December 24th through January 1st for winter break, we will be distributing grab-and-go meals on Wednesday, December 23rd from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at our 63 food distribution sites. So families are reminded to go to their respective food distribution sites on Wednesday, December 23rd, not Friday, December 25th. The district is also coordinating with the Mayor's Office of Children and Families and will be sharing information about additional food access centers, pantries, and other food distribution partners on resources available citywide if families need additional food resources over the holiday break. Our entire staff have been working tirelessly to serve our students and families since the pandemic began, and I want to encourage all of them to take this time at the end of the year to rest and recharge for 2021. I also want to wish our students and their families a safe and a joyful holiday season. 2020 has been an incredibly challenging year. Whether you are celebrating Hanukkah that begins this evening, Happy Hanukkah, Christmas on December 25th, Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa that begins on December 26th, Abari Ghani, or any other of the holidays that are in December, it is my sincerest hope that our students and all of their families can spend time together, either virtually or in person when safe to celebrate. And I know that our teachers will be excited for our students to return to digital learning on Monday, January 4th. So, Madam President, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Height. I'm going to call on board members and small groups to see if there are any questions or comments. Ms. Danzy, Ms. Fix Lopez, or Ms. Ahaya Hinton?
None.
Yes, Ms. Danzy.
None.
Ms. Ahaya Hinton? Ms. Fix Lopez?
Just a quick clarification question, Dr. Height, in case people are confused. You said that the COVID testing is going to pilot in schools next week where in-person learning is currently happening. I think that's, can you just so people aren't like, where's their in-person learning happening? Can you explain?
Yeah. So we have some district staff who also work to support some of the schools in the Archdiocese that are in person. And so there are certain sites where the Archdiocese are, and we have some staff there. And so we will start testing in those places as well as at some access centers.
Sorry, one follow-up, because then there might be curiosity of like, why are we in the Archdiocese schools? Are these things that we're legally mandated to provide?
These are things we're legally mandated to provide, like nursing services or other types of coaching that are also available at our schools.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions from Mr. Wong or Dr. McCulkin?
No question.
I do, but okay, I'll go then. Dr. Hyde, in our goals and guardrails framework, which we're going to be talking about a little bit more later tonight, it's important for us to make sure that the supports are in place for our students to thrive. And I'm particularly mindful of mental health, particularly at the end of the year, at the end of a very difficult year, and in light of the kind of continued remote situation that we're in. And I wonder if you could elaborate more on mental health resources that are available to students and staff, and where can people find that information?
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Wong, for that. We will continue to have the hotlines that are running, that are part of the Healing Together initiative. Those hotlines will still be in place and still be manned throughout. There are also employee assistance for any adults. We have an EAP program for any of the adults that are working with the school district, but we will have those hotlines still available through the families. They can be found on their website. The number is escaping me right now. I normally have it, but it is the Hope Line Philadelphia, and individuals, the Philly Hope Line, and individuals can get that information from their website.
Thank you.
And finally, are there any questions from Dr. McIver or Ms. Olaleye?
No questions. No questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Height. This month, the board.
Madam President, can I just make one clarification?
Sure.
It will be in schools, as Board Member Fix Lopez asked. The testing will be in those schools that I talked about, will not be at access centers. So I said access centers, they will not be at access centers, but in those schools that are in person.
Thank you for the correction then. This month, the board held a joint meeting of the Finance and Facilities Committee and Student Achievement and Support Committee. We'll begin with the joint committee report, followed by a report from our student representative, Tolu. The board's policy committee did not meet this month and will not have a report at tonight's meeting. At this time, I'd like to ask Dr. McIver and Vice President Ahaya Hinton to provide a brief report on the action items that were discussed at the joint meeting. We'll start with the Student Achievement Committee and Dr. McIver.
Thank you. This month, our committee did not receive any presentations or reports from the district. We discussed action items on tonight's agenda related to our committee and heard from registered speakers. Board members asked clarifying questions for action item 4, authorization of a donation from the Fund for the School District of Philadelphia, STEM Learning Resources donation, to better understand the distribution, selection, and application process of micro grants. Board members raised concerns regarding equity in this process and schools' capacity to apply for the funds available. Additionally, Larissa Chambeau, Chief Talent Officer, provided the committee with a brief overview of action item 14, authorization to execute contracts for teacher residency program with Drexel University, Relay Graduate School of Education, Temple University, and Urban Teachers for $1.275 million. Board members asked clarifying questions to better understand the district's recruitment efforts and retention rate in partnership with the organizations listed in the action item. Additionally, board members asked clarifying questions to understand how the proposed action item 5, authorization of a donation from the Fund for the School District of Philadelphia Open Sci-Ed and Desmos curriculum, donation value at $500,000 fits into the work that this district is already doing within the math curriculum. Finally, our committee heard from registered speakers. Sherry Michaud provided comments on the topics of access to testing sites for English language learners. Ms. Michaud expressed specific concerns regarding testing procedures and expectations for English language learners. Cecilia Thompson expressed concerns regarding school planning during and post-COVID-19. And lastly, Barbara Dowdall provided testimony urging the board to ensure that students have the proper supports available to achieve. This meeting marked the final meeting of the Student Achievement and Support Committee. In the coming weeks, the board will be announcing a process to collect and review questions submitted on action items from members of the public and board members. More information on this new process will be announced in advance of our next board meeting. At this time, I'd like to take a moment to thank staff members for their work in bringing important information to our committee meetings over the past 2 years. And I'd like to extend a special thank you to each of our committee liaisons. I would also like to thank the many individuals who have attended and participated in our monthly meetings of the Student Achievement and Support Committee over the past 2 years. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Vice President Ahia Hinton with the report of the Finance and Facilities Committee.
We received 2 reports from staff related to finance and facilities during the joint committee meeting. First, we heard from Ari Munson, Chief Financial Officer, who provided us with a financial update. Mr. Munson shared important updates on our financial status and expressed the importance of the district receiving federal funds in the coming weeks. Second, we received updates from Reggie McNeil, Chief Operating Officer, on the new school on Ryan Avenue and information on action item 22. That's regarding the Lowell Playground. Board members discuss action item 18, amendment of contract with Visual Sound for Classroom, Audiovisual Technology and Services, and action item 22, license purchase of assets with the Trust for Public Land at James R. Lowell Elementary School that are listed on this evening's agenda. Board members raised concerns regarding equity in selection processes for playground revitalization, the allocation of money available for capital improvements in the district's current budget, and the plan for audiovisual equipment as the district moves to complete this work, and ensuring that the adequate and responsive technical support is available for teachers and staff who will be using this equipment in real time. Board members also asked clarifying questions regarding the donation from the University of Pennsylvania and how schools will be selected for environmental improvements. Lastly, board members asked for an update on the district's environmental plan and the creation of the Environmental Advisory Committee. Finally, we heard from Lisa Haver, who raised concerns about salaries of charter leaders and the charter school renewal process. As noted by Dr. McIver earlier, this also marked the final meeting of the Finance and Facilities Committee. On behalf of the full board, I would like to again thank our committee liaisons for your work over the past 2 years. Additionally, I would like to thank the many individuals who have attended and participating in our monthly meetings. Your voice and perspective has been important to us as we navigate our way through this work. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Vice President. Thank you, Vice President Hinton. Are there any questions on either one of the reports from board members or student reps? I'm not seeing any hands. Nobody's waving frantically. Next, we're going to hear from our student board rep, Tolu Alaleye. Tolu, you want to give your report, please?
Thank you, President Wilkerson. This month, Kalisha and I spent time learning more about Philadelphia Black Student Alliance and Herb Ed Advocates' request for student board representatives to have voting rights. I attended a meeting with PBSA on November 24th to discuss their request. During the meeting, I shared some pros and cons about the plan put forward by PBSA and Herb Ed Advocate, along with Kalisha and I's perspective on the demands requested. We also spoke about a few other topics such as gun violence in our city, school environment, and mental health. Those in attendance expressed feeling desensitized to the gun violence prevailing in our city and are nervous for their brothers and friends. They also expressed a need for counselors in our schools who know and understand our school communities as well as the communities that we live in. Students are aware of the violence. They are aware of the outsiders being brought to talk to them. They are aware of the constant pressure to go to college after graduation. It is important that students see that college isn't the only option for them when preparing to graduate from high school, and that our schools increase their efforts to support all students regardless of the path that they choose. After this meeting, Kalisha and I continued to learn more about what the process would be and what action would need to be taken for students to have the right to vote. We have decided that we would like to focus our efforts on ensuring that students have the proper mental health support in school rather than student right to vote. Currently, as student reps, we do a lot of work to ensure that we are connecting with our peers in addition to attending meetings with student leaders, Dr. Hyde's advisory meeting, and with student-led organizations. As students, we believe that having the right to vote would be nice, but it would also come with very unique challenges such as having in-depth knowledge, financial considerations, and budgeting information. Having the right to vote would also mean that we would have to make tough decisions that we don't feel comfortable with at this time. Therefore, we would like to keep our current structure and roles as student board representatives. We have taken the time to read through the other demands made by Herb Ed Advocates and Philly Black Student Alliance and look forward to meeting with them later this month to discuss these requests. Given the virtual learning environment that we are currently in and all that our peers are experiencing, we do not believe that this is the right time to take on this initiative and would like to focus our attention on student mental health support for students throughout the district. I would like to add that while this is not an initiative that Kalisha and I are choosing to take on at this time, we thank Herb Ed Advocates and PBSA for bringing this issue to light and will support them in their work. In addition to meeting with PBSA, Kalisha and I also hosted a Goals and Guardrails town hall alongside board member Dr. McIver and board member Huang. During the town hall, students asked questions about how the Goals and Guardrails will change their school experiences. Kalisha and I felt it was important that our peers have an opportunity to provide their own feedback on the goals and guardrails since they will have a direct impact on our learning and overall experience at our schools. Also, it was a good opportunity for our peers to become more aware of the Board of Education and the work that you all do. Kalisha and I will be meeting with Dr. Hyde's Student Advisory Committee on December 15, 2020 to discuss the goals and guardrails and ensure that all students are aware of the changes that lie ahead of us all. As we look ahead at the new year, we anticipate being able to hold more town hall meetings and continuing to connect with student-led organizations to continue to learn more about students' wants and desires to help improve everyone's experience. Before concluding my report, I would like to wish everyone an awesome and restful holiday season, and we look forward to what lies ahead. Thank you. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Tolu. Are there any questions? I just want to make one additional comment about the interest that's been expressed in having voting by student board reps. We've had our legal department look into this, and it's something that would require at least a change in state law that currently sets the age for voting participation at 18 and establishes student board reps as non-voting members. It may also require a change in the city's home rule charter that also has restrictions that are applicable. But if you would like further information, we can put interested parties in contact with our general counsel. But thank you, Tolu, for the report and the wonderful work that you and Kailisha have been doing over the course of the year so far. Finally, I'd like to invite Board Member Danzy to introduce this month's Parent and Community Advisory Council member and provide them an opportunity to give their report. Ms. Danzy.
Thank you, Board President. Each month, we have asked a member of the Parent and Community Advisory Council to provide us with a report that includes feedback from students, parents, and members of the community. As the board shifts to our new structure, we will be working with our Parent and Advisory Council to hold conversation sessions. These conversation sessions will be an opportunity for the board to have meaningful two-way conversation with our stakeholders outside of our monthly board meetings. Members of our advisory council will be sharing more information about these conversation sessions in the coming weeks. We will also put information on the board website, and we hope you will participate. With that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tony Rocco, who will be present this month's report. Mr. Rocco is serving as a second-term member of the Parent Community Advisory Council, and thank you, Mr. Rocco, for that. Mr. Rocco has been a great link between the board and the North Philadelphia and Kensington communities over the past 2 years. We thank Mr. Rocco for the work that he has done and look forward to continuing this great partnership. Mr. Rocco, please provide us with your report.
Thank you so much, Board Member Danzy. I'm so happy to be here. Good evening, President Wilkerson, Dr. Height, members of the board and community stakeholders. My name is Tony Rocco, and tonight I come before you as an educator of over 20 years in Philadelphia and a representative of Kensington and North Philadelphia on the Parent and Community Advisory Council. I currently run a photography program for youth at 3 different locations in North Philadelphia. I'm proud to be serving my second year as a member of the Parent and Community Advisory Council. In this especially challenging year, I feel it is even more important that there is good communication between the board and the community. In October, I was tasked with bringing stakeholders from North Philadelphia to attend a virtual meeting with school board members regarding the rollout of the new goals and guardrails. I'm really happy to say we had great representation as well as a very lively discussion. Participants told me they appreciated the opportunity to have this dialogue with the board and have their concerns heard. I plan on using this new ad hoc network to help me in my role as a bridge between the board and the community. My community members gave their feedback directly to board members during that Zoom call. Highlights included working more directly with the undocumented community and partnering with community arts organizations so students have access to arts-based after-school activities. As the board transitions to the goals and guardrails, I encourage members of the community to continue to engage with the Parent Community Advisory Council in the new year through our public conversation sessions. I would like to note that since COVID began, many of our students and families have experienced very tough situations and sensitive conditions. Under normal times, schools would be able to help catch many of these types of situations. But now we need to come up with a new way to check in on the safety of students and their families. As a teacher, I was trained to be a mandated reporter and to know what to look for. My suggestion would be to develop a network with faith-based and community organizations to help pick up the slack, as they are now on the front lines and sometimes have the most contact with many families. Some resources may include training and workshops to help support families. I would really like to wish a great holiday season and again, encourage everyone to get involved with the board and work with them in continuing to develop the goals and guardrails. Thank you so much, President Wilkerson. This concludes my report.
President Wilkerson, you're on mute.
I was brilliant. Thank you, Ms. Danzy. We have one presentation this evening. As you've heard us mention, the Board of Education has been working towards the development of goals and guardrails. Tonight, we're pleased to share with you changes you'll be seeing in the work of the Board of Education in order to better serve the School District of Philadelphia. As a new board, we spent the past 2 years listening to community input, learning more about district operations at committee meetings and meetings with school boards across the country in order to inform our path forward. Our role is to govern the district. We listen to the community, set a vision, and monitor the district's progress towards achieving that vision. This evening, we're announcing our plans to hold ourselves and the district accountable for making a difference in our students' success. This plan was developed to drive change and deliver on the promise of local control. By focusing our time, work on student achievement in everything that we do, we will hold the district accountable for reaching the goals that we've set. With local control, the city and the school district are working more closely and intentionally together. The city has taken ownership of our schools and will provide the resources our schools need to thrive, while the board is committed to setting a vision and closely monitoring progress to make sure that we're accountable for making that vision a reality for all students. This plan outlines clear priorities we must tackle together in order to ensure every student is given the education that allows them to thrive and lead in a global society. Please bring up the presentation, and I'll ask Vice President Ahia Hinton to continue with slide 2.
I'm sorry, I had to unmute myself. Thank you. We are very excited to share more about this work. As we start our second term, we're proud of the work that we have done and the progress that we've made from the days of the SRC. We've met with communities across the city, visited dozens of Philadelphia schools, increased transparency and accessibility, held more than 60 action and committee meetings, established a parent and community advisory council, and annually appointed 2 student board representatives to bring student voice to all that we do. Now, after a momentous and difficult 2 years, we believe we are at an important moment to propel positive change in our schools. We have developed a plan to drive that change and to deliver on the promise of local control. Our plan is simple because it starts with the most basic questions. Why do our schools exist? The answer is that our schools exist to provide every student with the tools and experiences they need to reach their fullest potential. And I re-emphasize their fullest potential. A focus on student learning and student success must guide everything we do as a board. Please move to the next slide. While this focus may seem like a given, for nearly 20 years, our governing entity has not had this focus. The district has been in system survival mode, contending with state control and financial instability. Over recent years, we've made many strides thanks to the hard work of our educators and our superintendent. While our district is making strides such as increasing the number of high-performing schools and reducing the number of low-performing schools, we've even increased the 4-year graduation rate. We need to look honestly at where we are and ask whether that is enough. No matter how we look at this, the answer is no. It is time to move past system survival mode and into a world where we are focused on the success of all our students. To do this, we must restructure how we operate and function as a board. The focus of our work and time must be dedicated to student learning. Please move to the next slide, and I'll ask Board Member Huang to continue with the presentation.
If we look at 2 measures of achievement, student performance in mathematics and student performance in reading, we can see, according to the nation's report card, that there is a clear need for improvement. To put our district's student performance in context, this slide and the next one compare our student outcomes to those of 26 other large school districts around the country. As you can see from this comparison of 4th grade math and reading achievement, and as you will see on the next slide when looking at 8th grade achievement, Philadelphia is not keeping up with our peers. Please move to the next slide. The comparison of our district's student performance in mathematics and reading to student performance in the nation's other large districts is sobering. And it shows that as a whole, we are not doing what we need to for our students. We know we can do better for our students because we see that it is possible for our peers, and because we see it happening in individual schools in our district. To make sure it is happening for every student in our district, student learning must be the critical focus of the board moving forward. In one evaluation by the Council of Great City Schools, it is estimated that the School Reform Commission spent only about 10% of their time talking about student learning. The results you see here show that we need to be different. Research shows that when school boards focus on student learning and achievement, they enable their superintendent and district to better understand the priorities and track progress toward student achievement. Please move to the next slide. We've been meeting with districts around the country in order to learn from our peers and see what effective governing boards do to drive change for their districts. The answer is clear. Effective boards commit to a vision of high expectations for all students and set clear goals to make the vision a reality. They then spend the majority of their time focused on these goals and ensuring that the district is making progress. Our vision is clear. We want to ensure that all students are given an education that allows them to thrive, succeed, and lead in a global society. To make it a reality, we have developed two core sets of measurements: our goals and our guardrails. And more importantly, a plan to monitor them consistently over the next 5 years. Please move to the next slide. And at this time, I'd like to ask Board Member Danzy to continue with the presentation.
First, our goals. We know these goals are not surprising and they are not new, but they are what we heard from the many parents, students, teachers, and community members we've met with. We need to focus on ensuring our students have a solid foundation for lifelong learning. We want to know that our students are reading at or above their appropriate grade level, performing math at or above their appropriate grade level, and graduating ready for college and or career. In each of these three key areas, we have developed clear student achievement goals, which we will be monitoring in public to ensure our investments are leading to progress on these goals. However, we understand that this learning does not happen in a vacuum, and students can only thrive in environments built to support their achievements. Our guardrails are the set of non-negotiable conditions that must exist in schools in order to reach our goals were developed with this in mind. The board will be keenly focused on monitoring our progress towards each of these goals and guardrails for the next 5 years. And all board decisions and actions will relate to the goals and guardrails. I want to stress that this will be the board's way of holding the district accountable. It will be our way of understanding whether the district's action plan is working to improve student learning for all of our students. Please move to the next slide. Goal 1 is that every student is reading on or above grade level, because reading is a bedrock skill that leads to success in school, college, the workplace, and life. Next slide, please. Goal 2 is having every student perform on or above grade level in math. This is critical because students need a strong foundation in math in order to access higher levels of learning in middle and high school grades and to eventually succeed in diverse careers. Next slide, please. Goal 3 is ensuring that every student graduates ready for college and/or careers. Students must have the core academic knowledge and opportunity of experiences that will prepare them for post-secondary success in life. Please move to the next slide. And at this time, I'd like to ask Dr. McIver to continue with the presentation.
Thank you. We understand that student learning does not happen in a vacuum, and students can only thrive in environments built to support their achievement. Our guardrails, or the set of non-negotiable conditions that must exist in schools in order to reach our goals, were developed with this in mind. The next 4 slides show you how, in detail, our guardrails. Again, these are the core conditions that the district must ensure are in place in every school for every child. We have developed specific measures that we will be using to make sure that these conditions exist in every school for every student. Please move to the next slide. Guardrail 1 is ensuring welcoming and supportive schools with clean, safe environments and inclusive climates that offer students access to robust social, emotional, and mental health supports. Please move to the next slide. Guardrail 2 is providing students with enriching and well-rounded student experiences with co-curricular opportunities such as arts and athletics integrated into their school experience. Please move to the next slide. Guardrail 3 ensures that we partner with parents and family members and welcome them into their child's school community. Please move to the next slide. Guardrail 4 acknowledges that systemic racism is real and alive in our district. We must work to dismantle the practices that result in different outcomes for our students. We must focus on equity in everything we do. Please move to the next slide, and I'd like to ask Board Member McGulkin to continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. McIver. So what does all this mean? Well, this means you're going to see real change in the structure of our board meetings and in the way that the board goes about its work. We know that in order for our vision to be realized, we must hold ourselves and the district accountable for achieving these goals. We commit to holding ourselves accountable by ensuring that board time and board work is focused on student learning and success. While we'll continue to conduct regular business of the district, we will dedicate a significant amount of time to reviewing progress toward these goals and guardrails at public meetings. We believe that it's incredibly important that the board, educators, and parents have ways to know and understand what our students know and are able to do. We must spend significant time at each board meeting monitoring progress in order to make our vision a reality. Attached to tonight's action item 28, 5-year goals and guardrails, you'll see a 5-year calendar which outlines how we plan to monitor each goal and guardrail. Furthermore, we will conduct a self-assessment at least twice a year to ensure that we are spending our time and focus on this work. We are currently in the process of developing our self-assessment and will be formally adopting it in January. Once these goals and guardrails are formally adopted, they will serve as a framework for the work of the superintendent and the district. Therefore, the board will then be able to hold the district accountable by aligning the superintendent's annual evaluation to track progress on these goals and guardrails. And you'll be seeing a template of this evaluation with action item 28, which will be completed every January, starting in January 2022. We'll also hold the district accountable by approving a budget with investments that align to this vision, and by ensuring that all district initiatives are implemented to make progress on these measures. This will also demand that we monitor data, ask specific questions to understand the needs of our students, and use the data to inform our decision making. Next slide. So, how are we going to measure these goals and guardrails? I'd like to share one example. If you take a look at goal 1, reading, the percentage of students in grades 3 to 8 who are proficient on the state ELA assessment will grow from 35.7% in August 2019 to 65% by August 2026. To track progress toward this goal, one indicator we'll review is the percentage of students in grade 3 to 8 who score at or above grade level on the district's within-year reading assessment in fall, winter, and spring of each year. We'll further review this data by student subgroups, such as racial demographics, students with special needs, English learners, and economically disadvantaged students to ensure that we see progress across all subgroups of students so that we can ensure equity. Each month, we'll review the data and ask specific questions that help us to understand who is struggling, what gaps exist between student groups, what do we need to know about what is currently happening, why is it working in one area but not working in another, how do we plan to support a specific student subgroup, how do we know our strategies are working, how might changes show up in a future budget to support strategies that are working. This type of data will help us to better understand the equity in learning environments and opportunities of our most marginalized students, which will ultimately allow us to make better, more informed decisions in the role of governance, decision-making related to budgeting, allocations of funding, staffing, etc. And again, the ultimate goal of a quality education are the same: to graduate students that are prepared to thrive and succeed and be able to lead in a global society. But we know it takes much, much more than that to allow a student to fulfill their potential and be successful. By having the granular level data on each goal and guardrail to make better and more informed decisions at the board level, we will be able to provide the resources and school climates necessary to assure that every student reaches their fullest potential. Please move to the next slide. And at this time, I'd like to ask Board Member Fix Lopez to continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. McColgan. As we shared earlier, in order for the board to truly shift our focus to student learning, we must also restructure how we spend our time. To support positive growth and change in the district, the board needs to be focused on student learning. The board is strongest in this work when diverse members of the public share their input and guidance on the work of improving student learning. We're committed to increasing access to board work and engaging in deeper, meaningful conversations with our stakeholders. To do this well, we have taken lessons learned from the recent months of remote meetings to make board work more accessible to diverse audiences and creating true spaces for two-way conversations with the board. Moving forward, there will be several new opportunities for public engagement in board work centered around our board meetings and conversation sessions. First, related to our board meetings, the board will provide a new tool for individuals to ask questions and comment on upcoming decisions and actions in advance of each board meeting. A representative sample of these questions and responses to those questions will be posted in advance of each meeting for the board and public to review. Second, we have learned that moving board meetings to the virtual platform has broken barriers to access our meetings for many of our stakeholders. We are committed to maintaining the opportunity to participate remotely, even when meetings are able to resume in person, to improve access to our meetings, engage a wider audience, and prioritize new voices. Finally, we are excited to engage in conversation sessions, which will be hosted by members of our Parent and Community Advisory Council. These conversations will be an opportunity for us to engage in two-way conversations with various stakeholders across the city to collect real and honest feedback on board work. With the help of our advisory council, we also hope to reach a wider audience through our currently mandated meetings, our public hearings and meetings with City Council and the Mayor. Announcements will be made via our website in the coming weeks about these changes to our structure and meetings. Tonight, we will formally adopt these goals and guardrails. In the new year, you will see the district begin to implement plans to reach these goals, and the board will begin to monitor them. You will hear us asking consistent questions about the who, what, why, and how of the data that the district brings us. This is going to be our tool for accountability. We expect that every student is succeeding. Please move to the next slide. We want to thank the many individuals, institutions, and communities who have helped us get to this point. Business is not as usual, and you can trust us to make these changes. We hope to have your support in this work, and we invite you to visit the board's webpage to learn more about our goals and guardrails. Thank you. Madam President, that concludes our presentation.
Thank you. Before I ask board members to share their comments, I'd like to take a moment to thank the many individuals who've been a part of this process in helping us develop our vision and strategic plan. On behalf of the entire board, I'd like to thank the many individuals who've given their time, feedback to this process. Over the past 2 months, we've had the opportunity to meet with over 100 different stakeholders and community members to share information on our goals and guardrails. Additionally, we've held town hall meetings for all district students and staff to hear their questions and comments. I want to thank everyone who took the time to attend our town hall meetings or participated in our community workshops over the past few weeks. Specifically, I'd like to thank members of the Parent and Community Advisory Council, the Council for the Council of the Great City Schools, AJ Crable, Mike Casserly. I want to thank Dr. Height, Tanya Wofford, Naomi Wyatt, and Alicia Prince, who have been with us throughout the whole journey. While they were also planning on a return to schools, they were working diligently with us to align the board's vision with the work that the district is going to need to do. I also want to thank members of the board staff. We couldn't have accomplished what we've presented to you today without the work of Sithi Buccarelli, who's taken a lead role, Shakira Green, who's been our link and our connection to the advisory council, Tracy Horger, Pam Wilkinson, Denise Ruggiano, and our Janice Hatfield that provides us with a lot of the materials we present, and Claire Landau, who's our chief of staff for the board. It's been a joy to undertake this journey with my fellow board members. I want to thank you for all the time that you've put into this work. It's been an overlay on top of the normal work of the board, and I appreciate it and value the conversations that we've had. I also want to recognize Chris McGinley and Wayne Walker, who are former board members who were with us at the beginning of the journey. Board members and student reps, before we move on, I'm going to ask for any comments you'd like to make about the goals and guardrails. But first, I want to talk a little bit about my connection to this work and belief in its importance. It comes from a perspective, some of it comes from a perspective that I've gained from community members who've come to action meetings and meetings we've had with the community. In particular, I'd like to highlight some of the feedback that I've heard from Mr. Clouden over the past year or two and from Mama Gail, as they pressed us to take academic achievement of our students more seriously. And I want to signal in particular, I remember Mr. Clouden coming to the meetings and urging us to use the data. He came to us with information about attendance, teacher attendance, and said, the data's right there, we need to use it. And so as we embark upon this new approach to board governance, I want to thank you for the insights that you've shared and encouraging us to take the work of our students and their accomplishments more seriously. And with that, I'll turn it over to other board members that want to speak.
I'd like to speak. I'd like to first thank every member and every individual that has been involved in the education of our students. I also hope no one will take our new direction as a personal indictment on their efforts. Rather, it is an acknowledgement that no matter how hard we have been working, it isn't producing the desired results. And I know that one of the things that can help produce burnout is when we work hard for something, but never truly achieve the desired outcomes and not have any guidance on what and how it can be changed. Second, to our students, I want you to know that our actions are not indictments against you, but it is just a real critical examination of the system responsible for helping you to achieve. In many respects, we have too often focused on the things that were obstacles to your educational progress, rather than helping you to know and draw on your full potential to excel in spite of those issues. Examining these issues has made the board realize that we have failed to make a true laser focus on the education of our youth. And we have determined that this is unacceptable, and that as the oversight body of the district, it is our responsibility to establish clear goals expected of the district and to hold it accountable. And this is what we pledge to do. I hope you will join us in this direction and become full partners in improving the life chances for our students. Thank you, Madam President.
Is there another board member who wishes to speak?
Yes, I want to take the opportunity to also, and while we were thanking people, to thank Amina Akbar as well, who also participated in having us think a little bit differently about the work that we are doing as a board. I think that for the most part, everything has been said, but I wanted to add that as we've been through this process, I realized that this is a change that's necessary in that it holds the board the board accountable, but it also holds me as an individual as part of the governance board accountable. And, I say this all quite often, but we cannot continue to do the same things and expect different outcomes. We just cannot. We have to do something different. Our children deserve the best. And right now, our best is just not good enough. So we as a board must do better. We all must do better. And I know that I, as a member on this board, must do better. And this, I believe, is the right direction that the board is going. Thank you.
Alicia Diaz.
Thank you. As the board prepares to adopt the goals and guardrails, Tolu and I have prepared a statement. As students, we believe that it's very important that we have an understanding of things happening within the district. This is important to us since all decisions made by the Board of Education directly impact and affect us and our classmates. Since stepping into this role, we have learned a lot about the work you guys have done for us and the work of the district and how everything comes together to create our school experiences. As students, we work hard to make sure that we are meeting the expectations of our teachers and parents. We believe that the district must work just as hard to ensure our success and meet our expectations and the expectations of our parents and caregivers. We have experiences both in and out of school that shape and impact our process and achievement as students. We feel that the board's goals and guardrails are a step in the right direction, and we all continue to learn from each other and work together to create healthy, safe school environments. Particularly, my favorite guardrail, guardrail number 1, speaks the most importance of school support and states that schools will be spaces with inclusive climates that provide students with access, robust social, emotional, and most importantly, mental health supports. When Tolu and I stepped into this role, we came with very specific focuses and goals to highlight the importance of student support around mental health services and trauma. Since the beginning of our school year, we have seen our school communities work hard to help us make the most of our learning in this virtual setting. Some schools have given scheduled days off throughout the week, like my school. I love it so much, that free day to do and to just recuperate. And other schools have held community meetings for our teachers to check in with us to make sure that we're doing okay in this virtual world. I cannot stress how important this is to helping us as students and our well-being. Sometimes our teachers are the only ones checking in on us. Being asked, "Are you okay? How is your day going?" can make a huge difference for us. As a person who has lost someone this year, this question goes a long way. Knowing our teachers and staff care about us beyond our grades is an important part of building trust and making us feel safe within our school environments. Going to school online is a huge adjustment and has created mental health challenges for all of us as we try to get through the pandemic without seeing our peers face to face or our teachers and staff. We look forward to the new year to monitor the work being done to support all students who reach these goals and guardrails. The changes that the board have made are exciting and are an exciting effort to ensure that putting us, oh my God, I'm sorry. The changes that the board have made are an exciting effort to ensure that you are putting us, your students, first. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And our next comment will come from Mr. Wong.
Oh, great, I have to follow that.
Good luck.
I'm so appreciative of Ms. Diaz and Ms. Olale, and quite frankly, moved. I want to acknowledge just the weight that you guys are carrying in wanting to hear out your fellow students, and just so impressed with, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, with that burden that you've carried and the leadership that you've shown in really being the voice for so many students. It's been a really difficult year. And at the same time, we have to get through it. We have to get through it together. And I'm just so impressed and so appreciative of what you've brought to this team. As it relates to goals and guardrails, I think it's just so interesting how obvious and yet how revolutionary it is to focus on student achievement. It will be very clarifying for us as a board to center our meetings, our actions, our reports on student achievement and nothing else. And it'll be clarifying for the superintendent and his team to know that this is what we're holding him accountable to. And at the same time, it's going to be really difficult, although I would argue necessary for everyone to see the numbers when the numbers are not what we would want them to be. We know that where we are as a district in terms of student achievement is unacceptable. And we're going to be shining a bright spotlight on that over and over again. And that's going to be painful to ask what's going on and why, and to see that over and over again, meeting after meeting, month after month. So I'm sobered by the work ahead, but I'm also energized by the progress that we're going to make when we put our stake in the ground and say, this is what we're about, when we own up to where we're failing, and when we work together to do better. Thank you.
And Ms. Fix Lopez.
So I am as excited as all of the other board members about this. I know as an educator, if I were sitting in my classroom right now in the school district, I'd be like, oh my gosh, and have a heart attack at the same time. And why? Because, you know, we get, sometimes we hear the word standardized assessment, we hear data, we hear realignment. And as an educator, having experienced that previously working in the district years ago and just in public education in general, that often means change, and it means new initiatives, and it means, you know, some new like intervention, right? And I think it is true that changes will come of this, and that's what we're looking for. And board member Hay Hinton has said it many times, it's like, we can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. It just doesn't work. And so what I am so excited about with this is a couple of things. Of number one, we always talk about what the district does or what the board has done in terms of an action item. But this is looking at what has been achieved. What have we accomplished? What can our students now do as a result of what we have done? And so I'm excited that we are flipping it and looking at the outcomes. If something isn't working, then, you know, again, as board member Hinton has often said, why do we keep doing it? And so that's really exciting for me. In terms of the assessment, you know, we have talked a lot about, we've heard a lot of testimony from people about being overassessed, right? So teachers talking about, and parents talking about it, and students overassessment. So I do want to be clear that we are aware of that. And some of the things that we have talked about, and we talked about it at the teacher town hall, was an assessment audit and really looking at what assessments do we need, and what assessments might overlap. Are the assessments actually giving us the data that we're looking for? And if not, why are we doing them? And why are we spending the money on them? So there is a lot. I mean, a lot of those critical, skeptical questions that have come to us are very valid and have helped guide us along this work. I do think it's really important, though, to point out that a standardized assessment is not showing us student success or potential. If that's what we're using it for, we're not using it correctly. The standardized assessment should be helping us to be informed at the systems level on the decisions that we need to make. You know, the volume, I will tell you, like, I was naive coming into this as a board member to understand the volume of work this is. You know, it is huge. I mean, huge is an understatement. There's no word to describe it. And so this will help us to make sure that we're not making decisions based on emotions, decisions based on, you know, hot topics of the day or flashy new programs, but decisions based on what is actually fundamentally working in our schools and really understanding what are the different needs in our schools. So I absolutely understand and appreciate when people are skeptical of this, are nervous about it. It is, you know, as an educator in particular, I get it completely. But I am very, very excited about it. I think it is fundamentally different work. And I think at the end of the day, it puts a lot of pressure on us. So, you know, it's really, it gives the public the opportunity to actually even hold us even much more accountable. So I'm super excited. And I look forward to, you know, our first monitoring session in January so people can see how it actually plays out. Because conceptualization is really hard at this point to see it, right? You're still on mute, Joyce.
Dr. MacGyver.
Sure. Every board member has said everything that, you know, I concur. I am not sure those who are listening realize how this is a paradigm shift in how we are thinking and how we actually will be working with the school district. You know, as board members, we've spent countless hours doing work to support the district, but I was becoming very cynical, believing that the work we were doing was not leading to substantial change. And when I took this oath for the board, I wanted to be able to say that at the end of my term, looking back, that we moved the needle. And it was becoming clear that we were just doing the work of what the SRC was doing, and we really needed some change. So when we started this work, it was more than a year ago to restructure the board and focus on creating the kinds of learning environments that every student deserves. I recommitted, and I, was seriously thinking, what value am I bringing to this board? This has really encouraged me and energized me as a board member. Ms. Diaz, guardrail number 1 is my favorite, followed very closely by guardrail number 2. And I want to promise you that those will really get the attention that's needed, because we know that when we create these environments for students where they know they are valued and given opportunities to develop their gifts, then we're going to see achievement happen in all areas. And we can't think of this in a vacuum. And I'm just really excited about this work and can't wait to get started. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McIver. One of the things that the board has learned over the course of the last 2 years is that our role is different from the superintendent's role. That our role as a governing board, setting a vision, establishing the goals, but the work of getting that done is the work of the superintendent. And so I'd like to pivot and give Dr. Height an opportunity to comment on his perspective on the goals and guardrails.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to all the board members for your comments. Kalisha, Tolu, thank you as well for your statement in support of. I first want to thank the board for taking this important step and to establishing not just critically important goals, but also critically important conditions that must be in place in schools. I mean, as you formed them as guardrails. And I appreciate the opportunity that we've had here in the district to work with you on their development. They are focused on what matters. And just to put that in context, there's a question asked of me earlier today when we were with media, and there was a question about my thoughts on the board's goals and guardrails. And I talked about how excited and encouraging I am, albeit understanding that it changes dramatically the work that we will do. But how excited I was because in the 9 years I've been here, through countless SRC meetings, through countless School Board of Education meetings, we've talked at the very minimal level about student outcomes. And to think that now the meetings will be driven around conversations about student outcomes is very encouraging. And so it ensures that children can and will achieve. And importantly, it emphasizes the urgency around the work. And so, as I indicated before, these things will serve, the goals and guardrails will serve as a framework or foundation, if you will, for developing the policies and creating our annual budgets around doing those things that are actually moving the needle on student outcomes. This is a data-driven approach that will ultimately create stronger alignment around our highest leverage activities and what matters most to improving student outcomes. So I look forward to working with the board on the presentations of these data, and I look forward to presenting the first monitoring report on Target 2, which is K-3 English Language Arts, at the January 28th board meeting. So once again, to the board members, thank you for your work on this. To board members, current and past board members, thank you for your work on this. Thank you for developing these, and congratulations on delivering what I do believe will be a game changer for the city of Philadelphia and all of our children.
Thank you, Dr. Height. Next on Next on our agenda is hearing from registered speakers who are registered to speak on action items we're considering this at this meeting. We'll hear from speakers on general topics later in our agenda after we voted on tonight's business. If you're registered to speak on an action item this evening, this is the time to ensure that you're logged into the meeting with the information shared by our staff earlier today. Now I'd like to acknowledge the written testimony we received for this meeting. Board Member MacIver, please share the information on the written testimony that's been incorporated in this evening's record.
Thank you, President Wilkerson. The board received 13 pieces of written testimony. If you would like to read these in full, please go to our website to view our electronic agenda where the written testimony is posted in full with the rest of this evening's materials. I will group comments about the written testimony by subject matter. Marjorie Cavello, who is a registered speaker this evening, sent in 9 letters from various school community members and partners in support of Renaissance Charter Schools and specifically of Lindley Academy Charter School at Burney. Julia Dallas sent in 4 letters of support for the Relay Graduate School of Education as well as Relay's SY 2021 Impact Report. This concludes the written testimony.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Ms. Rauch. Would you please make comments about our speakers policy?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank members of the public for input on school district matters and issues, including the proposed actions being considered this evening. To respect every speaker's time, we will be strictly enforcing the 3-minute time prompt. Time limit. There is a time prompt that you'll see in a tile on the screen. When the yellow light comes on, you will have 30 seconds to wrap up, and when the red light comes on, your time will be up. Student speakers, elected officials, and those speaking on action items are prioritized on the agenda. Up to 4 speakers will address the board on each topic. The written testimony submitted in advance of the start of the meeting will be included as part of the record. When I call your name, your line will be unmuted by the host and you may begin your testimony. And please remember that there is a 2-minute time lag between our live stream and the Zoom platform. So as we approach your speaker number, please make sure that you're by your phone or computer and that you're on and accessing Zoom. The Zoom prompt, so if you miss your speaker slot, we won't be able to go backwards. I also want to remind speakers that by board policy, registered speakers should refrain from any remarks of a personal nature regarding any individual district staff person or persons, and that complaints against employees can be filed with the Office of Employee and Labor Relations. More information is available on their website, or you can email employerrelations@philasd.org. I'm going to call 5 speakers at a time. Our first speaker is Yuma Diabura, and then Tatiana Rodan, Shayla Street, Fanta Dukuli, and Irvin Mobley.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, you can begin, thank you.
Good evening, my name is Yuma Diabera and it's spelled Y-O-U-M-A. I'm a senior at Central High School as well as a member of the Philly Black Student Alliance and Urb Ed Advocates. I hope that my testimony will set the precedent for the rest of this meeting because this isn't the first time students have to come on here and tell y'all about yourselves, and it won't be the last because what I just seen was y'all commending yourselves for barely doing your jobs. I ask that the board wake up. I mean this figuratively and literally, since students' voices bore you to sleep month after month. If you are tired of hearing our voices, then this is not the job for you. As students, our main focus is supposed to be school. But instead, we have to beg board members and mayors to let us vote in a school district that is built to serve us. Instead, we have to be told that our voices do matter while simultaneously being told that, and I quote, students are too young and lack overall experience and depth of knowledge of these issues, as per the opinion of Christopher Pasley, who is a teacher in the Philadelphia School District. While he spent his summer drafting a book about white fragility, students have spent their summers advocating for schools not filled with asbestos, schools not filled with police, schools not filled with racism, schools not filled with teachers who don't value our history, our opinion, or our voices. We don't want a high chair at the table, we want to vote. We want to establish a council of 15 students that are diverse and come from different schools from the district that can help the 2 student representatives with all the hard work they're supposed to do and allow for those 2 representatives to accurately mirror the voices of all the students in the district. Because although I respect Tolu's personal opinion, it is not reflective of what students all across the district want.
Excuse me, we're not going to have comments, people called out by name at this meeting. And so if you want to make general comments, we appreciate and value your input, but are not going to have personal comments directed at any individual.
Okay. It is not reflective of what students all across the district want and have been fighting for. And it's even more frustrating that the adults on the board are using these representatives as mouthpieces. We want documents that are easily comprehended and understood by students and parents in the district. We want transparency in the decision process of appointing board members. We want board members that fill these seats and understand that they are responsible for upholding student voice and are advocates for students and should mirror our voices, not their own. We want people on the board who understand that decisions must be made in the best interest of the district students and not their businesses. We want people on the board that live in Philadelphia and have a connection with the students that they are supposed to be advocating for. Despite what the district says month after month, you show us that our voices do not matter. When students come together and call out board members that hold our fate of schooling and education in their hands and critique politics, policies, and protest on the steps of 440 in June weather, they deserve a vote. When students have to sit in classroom with teachers that run forums called Philly Teachers for Trump, we deserve a vote. I don't care how tired you are of hearing us say this, but until it changes.
Our next speaker is Tatiana Roldan. You can start.
Hello, my name is Tatiana Roldan, and I'm a 17-year-old student in Northeast High School and a chair member and founder of the PBSA. I stand with the Philly Black Students Alliance and Herb Ed in demanding to increase real student representation in the district. Specifically, we are calling on for the 2 student representatives on the Board of Education to be given voting rights, for the district to establish a student representative advisory committee to support the 2 student reps, for the board to provide transparent and accessible information for students, and for the district to restructure the onboarding process of student representatives to ensure that they are equipped to work effectively. It is crucial that students be given the power to help decide the fate of their own education. We are a group of strong, powerful individuals who have come together to help you do your job. We have come together to show you what we need in our schools and what we need in our community. We're asking for you to listen to us. We're not asking for you to do the work because somehow we've already done it and we will continue to do so until you start listening. This is not a problem that is going to be solved in a few weeks or even a few months. We understand the logistics, we understand the legality issues with what we want, but somehow we are still willing to take the time to fight for what we know we need, and so should you. Your job is to listen to your community and address the problems at hand. And until our problem is actually solved and addressed, I can promise you that every single one of us will be back here every month at 5 o'clock sharp to tell you. I ask you to not only consider the 2 student representatives on your board right now, but the 2 after them and the 2 after them. I ask you to not only consider the now of Philadelphia, but also the future of Philadelphia and the future of every single one of your students that live here. My name is Tatiana Roldan, and I stand here tonight, standing with the Philly Black Student Alliance and Herb Ed. You have heard my voice before, and you will hear it again and again until the representation of our students in Philadelphia is taken seriously. Thank you, and I will see you all next month.
Shayla Street.
Shayla Street is not online.
Okay, thank you. Fanta DeCooley.
Fanta DeCooley is online, but we're having trouble getting her over due to the version of Zoom that she has. We'll try to reach out to her.
Okay, should I move on to the next speaker?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Irvin Mobley. And after Irvin Mobley, so the next group is ready, we'll have Sinai Browning, Nashay Taylor, Carla Milius, Carol Kalimnik, and Deborah Grill.
Ms. Rauch, Irvin Mobley, Sinai Browning, and Nashay Taylor are not online.
Okay, thank you. Carla Milius.
Carla Milius also has a Zoom version that is not allowing us to open her line to speak.
Okay, Carol Kalimnik.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, you can start. Thank you.
Philadelphia School Board is changing the way it operates. It is quashing public engagement by fragmenting public discourse. 2 years ago, when the SRC ended, we hoped that a return to local control would allow for public engagement and transparency. Those hopes are now gone. The board started off with 4 committees that gave the public an opportunity for dialogue with board members. First to go was community engagement and partnership that disappeared after a year. Now item 29 eliminates student achievement and support in finance and facilities. We were told when we persisted in asking when our questions raised at action meetings would be answered, to raise them at committee meetings. That was the venue. The only public venue left is 3 minutes allocated to speakers at action meetings. If you do not stay on topic, then the president swoops in and cuts your mic, thus ending your participation. This silencing of community voice enhances the call for an elected school board. Item 14 adds yet another unaccredited nonprofit to the roster for teacher recruitment efforts. The Haidt administration now wants to add a 4th partner to their teaching fellows cohort of Temple and Drexel, neither PACE pilots, and Relay, or as former board member Dr. Chris McGinley says, the Relay Fake Graduate School of Education. Urban Teachers received a startup grant in 2009 from the New Venture Fund, which blogger Thomas Oltekan has called the Swiss Army knife of public school privatization, as it promotes education technology development and bankrolls charter school creation. Urban Teachers has set up shop in Dallas, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. Johns Hopkins School of Education acts as their accredited partner in D.C. and Baltimore. Their funders include the Walton Family Foundation and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We have a broad-trained superintendent on a mission to privatize the district and a board that willingly follows his lead and approves contracts as fast as he proposes them. How is Urban Teachers obtaining Pennsylvania certification? If they don't, will the district retract its offer? Why is the board even considering adding yet another unaccredited vendor to the list? Deny Urban Teachers a contract. For more diverse teachers, work directly with historically Black colleges and universities instead of contracting with an uncredited nonprofit. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Deborah Grill, and the group after that, Lisa Haver, Maddie Lubert, Shania Roberts, Sherry Michaud, and Lori Mazer. So Deborah Grill, you can start.
Thank you. Once again, I'm here to voice my annual objection to using Relay Graduate School of Education to train teachers. And once again, I'll list my reasons. Relay is based on Doug Lamont's Teach Like a Champion, which focuses on practice to the exclusion of theory. There is not credible research that supports this method. Relay is not accredited in Pennsylvania for a myriad of reasons. The most alarming being that, and I'm quoting, Relay failed to demonstrate a sufficient understanding of the requirements for approval to offer courses through an education enterprise that would lead to a master's degree in teaching. In other words, Relay failed to fill out the application correctly because it couldn't understand the directions, even after being given several chances. The Philadelphia Camden website specifically states that graduates in both Philadelphia and Camden will earn their master's degree in New Jersey. The website does not include a list of the faculty nor a list or description of course offerings. Relay doesn't teach research techniques or require in-depth academic research. Relay trains teacher residents in behaviors, but it doesn't educate them. I find it ironic that a school district whose duty is to educate students would accept teachers from a residency program that doesn't educate its own students. Relay has few leaders with a doctorate, engages in no research, has no library, and has no relationship to the advancement of knowledge and education. It has been called the McDonald's of teacher education, with a limited menu and low overhead. Relay does a disservice to the teacher residents in that program by providing them with an incomplete education. You do a disservice to Philadelphia school students by supporting Relay. I understand that you want to diversify the teaching workforce, but working directly with nearby historically Black colleges and universities is a better place to start than contracting with an unaccredited program such as Relay. I urge you to deny this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Haber.
Good evening. Based on the report by the operations chief last week, I'm asking the board to explain the arrangement made between the district and the contractor at Lowell and the buying of the equipment in the playground update. The board should also explain the arrangement between the district and the contractor at the new school being built in the Northeast. It sounded like Mr. McNeil said last week that the developer bought the property and would sell it back to the district after construction is complete. If this is correct, the board should explain how and why this deal was made and for whose benefit it was made. Sadly, I expect no answers because that is not how the board rolls. The board made a quick announcement last week that it was disbanding 2 more committees. The board made a commitment when it replaced the SRC to be more transparent and to make sure the public would be able to get answers on important issues. The board is now rescinding that promise without admitting that it is rescinding its promise. How Orwellian to tell the media that you are focusing on student achievement right after disbanding the Student Achievement Committee. The board absolves itself and the administration as a matter of course. The board turned its back on the students and staff who were endangered and actually harmed, some hospitalized, during the construction at Ben Franklin SLA by holding no one responsible, including Dr. Height. The board turns its back on district stakeholders by refusing to take even the smallest step toward charter reform. No one will even broach the subject of the mega salaries of the charter CEOs or why taxpayers are footing the bill for 2 global leadership CEOs for $430,000 a year for one and $327,000 a year for the other, both making more than Dr. Height for operating 1 school each. Again, the board most shamefully turns its back on the people who work at 440, and particularly those at the charter schools office who were slandered by charter operators making baseless accusations of racial discrimination against them, without a word of defense from the superintendent or any member of the board. Members of APS and OCOS held a press conference yesterday demanding, as citizens in a democracy, that we be heard by our elected official in the selection of new board members. When voters choose government officials, those officials are accountable to the voters. We don't get to vote. When board members are chosen by one person, then we should not be surprised when they hold themselves accountable to that one person. From the Hillco deal to the contracts with fake graduate schools like Relay, to brazenly violating the Sunshine Act month after month, to accepting foundation money, no questions asked, not a single board member breaks from the pack and stands up for what is right. Board members are chosen in secret at the mayor's nominating panel. Should we be surprised that secrecy has become the norm? With the elimination of committees, we have now.
Maddie Lubert.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Height and members of the school board. I'm Maddie Lubert, a teacher at Kensington Health Sciences Academy and a member of the Racial Justice Organizing Committee. I'm going to speak against action item 18. I hope you'll indulge me for a moment while I paint you a picture. It's July 23rd. There are dozens of concerned students, parents, and teachers, or perhaps you know them as crazy people, that have signed up to testify about the troubling reopening plan. Constituents have many concerns about the plan, but there exists a fairly common refrain. Please invest in virtual learning rather than dumping money into a half-baked hybrid or in-person plan. And yet it's December 10th and we're discussing a $7 million contract allotted for the purchase, installation, training, and ongoing maintenance of classroom audiovisual systems and related classroom technology to support hybrid and digital instruction. This is being heaped on top of an already $40 million contract. I'm a little confused. Last week, I got an ominous email alluding to tough decisions, AKA layoffs, that might need to happen to close a $10 million budget gap. Well, here's 70% of that money. We can bring the gap down to just $3 million. Surely we know that our employees and their well-being is more important than tech. In July, we begged you to hold off spending on materials for in-person or hybrid learning. For months now, educators have brought up numerous concerns about teaching via live recording, including the ways it will be invariably used to police students in a predominantly Black and brown district. And yet, We get messages from the bosses about how sad they are to make tough choices that will not only affect the lives of district employees, but will also traumatize the students that have grown close to their beloved teachers, counselors, nurses, and secretaries. It didn't seem tough to spend over $600,000 on an office suite remodel at 440 last year. It didn't seem tough to throw money indiscriminately at the failure of a project at Ben Franklin High School, even though people's lives were put in danger and contractors failed time and again to meet deadlines. And it never seems tough when the school board gets out their big rubber stamp for these and other expensive budget items. Apparently, it's never tough to choose money and shiny projects over the lives of children. Unfortunately, the city of Philadelphia and every other government entity has failed in handling this public health crisis. Instead, we've been gaslighted, silenced, called crazy, and dismissed by the people who make decisions about our very livelihoods. Many are frustrated with virtual learning, but I wonder how it could have been if we had a more realistic approach to planning this school year. It is unbelievable that leaders will talk out of one side of their mouth saying there's nothing we could have done to avoid these tough choices, while out the other side, they're promising millions to outside contractors. At best, this is foolish. At worst, it's truly immoral. Please do not approve action item 18. Do not spend one more dollar until you can assure that no jobs will be lost and no resources will be taken from our schools. Again, we beg you, make the easy, moral, and human choice.
Shania Browning. I'm sorry, Shania Roberts. Apologies.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, you can start. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Shanae Roberts, and I currently work at Kensington Health Science Academy, teaching geometry and personal finance, math. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Temple Teacher Residency Program and the benefit of it. So as soon as people hear the word or see or even smell a hint of math, they cringe up and blurt out their disdain for the subject. I chose to become a resident of the Temple Teacher Residency Program because I wanted to be part of shifting perspectives and attitudes normally associated with math. It was an easier choice to attend Temple University versus any other college because of my personal connection, my aunt. She worked at Temple University for over 20 years, and she was the most educated and elegant person that I knew. So Temple must have done something right. They did. And the proof was in the Temple Teacher Residency Program, along with the partnership of the School District of Philadelphia. The program helped me to deepen my content understanding, provided me with multiple ways to present math and connect other subjects like science, social studies, and language arts, teaching to the student holistically. Actually being able to work at a school in the district during my residency showed me how to release what I thought the role of a teacher was, and helped me to embrace the importance of being flexible and adaptable, and also how to seek to understand the students, their lives, and their way of thinking. Every aspect of my experience emphasized real world and authentic learning. I live in a time where I read the reviews before I buy anything. And anything less than 4.5 stars, I don't even bother. If I were asked to rate the Temple Teacher Residency Program, I would give it 5 stars. I would recommend it to my brother, my sister, or anyone interested in teaching and looking for a quality preparation program. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Michaud.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can start. Thank you.
I would like to speak on 3 items on the agenda this evening. First, to item number 29. It is very disappointing to see that the board proposes to discontinue the Student Achievement Committee and its bi-monthly meetings. Originally, these committee meetings were conceived, I believe, as a venue for more in-depth discussion of issues, more public input, and more information sharing between the board and various offices at 440. And of course, these meetings motivated board members to study and debate in advance various action items that would be voted on at upcoming action meetings. While these committee meetings have not resulted in much, if any, opportunity for actual discussion between the public and the board, it was nevertheless helpful for the board to focus on the instructional issues that can often be overshadowed by policy and budgetary considerations. These committee meetings have been significantly watered down in recent months, but the potential was there to allow for more careful consideration of the many instructional challenges faced by the SDP, challenges that may very well prevent your math and reading goals from being reached. Second, to item 28. goals and guardrails. Here I notice once again that the STP has made little effort to specifically mention inequities in services to English learners. In each of your 4 guardrail categories, English learners are excluded from consideration by the district. As usual, their needs, including but not limited to opportunities to attend special admission schools and to receive sufficient and appropriate language support, are ignored. These failures are, to be sure, examples of racism, ethnic discrimination, and linguicism. I urge you to mention these students specifically in this document, since they are members of yet another group disadvantaged in their daily educational experiences in Philadelphia schools. Finally, to item number 14. It is disappointing to see that the SDP continues to partner with teacher preparation programs that are not affiliated with Pennsylvania universities that directly award PA teaching certificates. I am speaking specifically of the Relay program, which confusingly names itself a graduate school of education, while not in any way that I understand affiliated with a university. Because we are surrounded by excellent state-related and private universities, including Temple, Cheney, and Westchester, along with Drexel, LaSalle, and many others, it is a questionable decision to promote this less academic and less recognized teacher certification program. While I'm sure everyone applauds the attempt to thoroughly prepare teacher residents for urban settings, depriving them of challenging university coursework and a legitimate degree seems to show a lack of confidence in these candidates' abilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lori Mazer, and then after that we have Stephanie King, Horace Clouden, and Cecilia Thompson during this portion of the meeting.
Hi, this is Lori Mazer, and you have me live with my 2 children who are attending their first board meeting and very excited and kind of giddy with it. So they're the only people, I think, that are giddy with excitement about a board meeting these days. But I just wanted to talk. I'm not going to be the Grinch who says, please don't give kids a playground, but I'm speaking and urging this board for action item number 22. After listening to the questions that board member Fix Lopez asked Mr. McNeil in the Finance and Facilities Committee, I think there's just so much data you don't have to be able to make this decision. And I wish this was, your next meeting when these guardrails and guidelines are fully in place. But I would urge you to table this decision or to vote it down for now. Because there's just no way with the information that you have, you can ensure me that this is equitable. This expenditure of $250,000 for a single playground at a school, I think it's a pre-K to 4 school, it's close to 800 students, represents, I think, about 20% of the total playground budget. That just doesn't seem, I don't know, without seeing a list and a spreadsheet of how we're choosing what schools get what funds, and knowing from experience with local schools down here in South Philadelphia who basically struggle to raise the $60,000 they need to get a playground in place. I don't even know what a $250,000 playground looks like. And this is a $500,000 project where the other half of the funding is coming from TPL. So I guess I'm just asking this board to hold the district accountable with the same rigor that you say you're now going to hold yourselves accountable, and make sure you're getting answers to these questions and you're getting the deep look at the data and the presentation and not taking anyone's word for it. I think spending 20% of our total playground budget on a single school without understanding how it was determined that these schools would be chosen and allotted playgrounds while so many of our schools don't have any. I just think it's not fair, and I don't think it speaks to the values of our district and where we should be spending our money these days. So I am not against playgrounds in front of my children, but I am against this expenditure at this moment without further information. So thank you very much.
Stephanie King, and I'm also going to just make sure Carla Milius actually is on the line and will be able to speak after Cecilia Thompson and before we move to board business. Stephanie King, you can start. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can start. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie King, and I'm the president of Kearney Friends, representing General Philip Kearney Elementary School in Northern Liberties. I want to commend you on the goals and guardrails. The goals are aspirational. The guardrails would be a welcome environment to achieve those goals. And I am here to tell you that you cannot achieve any of those things unless you repair the trust and relationships with the people in the schools, the students, the parents, and the teachers. You say you want every student at grade level for math and reading, but you refuse to listen when teachers tell you what they need. You steamroll their voices to authorize $1.7 million for a new learning system they don't want and are begging for other supports. You depend on the largesse of parents to fundraise for books and libraries and software licenses like First in Math. Both things Kearney Friends has had to pay for our school. The other better off schools afford easily. You say you want to end practices that perpetuate systemic racism and hinder student achievement, but you refuse to listen to students when they tell you they want cops and metal detectors out of their schools. You've refused to look at data put in front of your face about the inequality and segregation in your schools. You say you want parents to feel welcomed and encouraged to be partners in their school community, but you refuse to listen when parents told you the classrooms weren't safe and they didn't want the digital academy. You listened instead to a bunch of consultants who prepared slick presentations that you had to abandon when we raised our voices in unison. Your goals will be just a bunch of numbers and your guardrails will be just a bunch of pretty words unless you can start viewing us as your constituencies and not adversaries. There are people ready and willing to help you do this work, and I've met so many of them. But we are so tired. We're tired of every budget shortfall leading immediately to the talk of layoffs or closing schools. How about laying off some consultants or the IT sourcing on tonight's agenda that told me to put my kid in a cyber charter when I called your hotline for help with Google Classroom? We're tired of another list of metrics being thrown at our schools without the support to back it up. You're going to expect my school to double our math and language arts proficiency when you come in every October and level someone away from us so nobody knows what they'll be teaching with any finality until November of each year? The goals and guardrails are good, but without truly engaging the parents, students, and teachers, it's just another nice PowerPoint that shows you care more about presentations than about us. Thank you.
Horace Clouden.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
We can. You can start. Thank you.
Thank you. The board is asking the public to wait at the end of 2021 for its first report on the school year to hold people accountable. Why not start now? Let's look at the present data supplied by the school district's SPR submitted February 2020 for in-person learning. The data shows 194 out of 210 schools fall in the F range according to the academic scale, which means K-8, 130 out of 140 are F. Middle schools, 17 out of 20 are F. High schools, 47 out of 50 are F, which 27 schools have 0% in student achievement, and out of that, 24 are high schools, which means that the grade configurations are not working. Bring back the junior high schools, 7th, 8th, and 9th, to have checks and balances. Moving on, teacher accountability. For the last two report periods, the data shows teachers have poor attendance across the entire school district, ranging from 30%, 40, 50, and 60. If it starts with the teachers, where is the teacher? Remember, 10-month employees between $42,000 and $73,000 plus $49,000 in benefits. Moving on again, principals accountability. Teachers' observations in proficiency. How can the teachers be graded between 90 and 100% where you have 27 schools at 0% in student achievement? This is the data of 2020. You wanted to wait until you receive the data of 2021. Make a tough decision now. Number one, replace the superintendent that has been here for 9 years. Number two, evaluate your teaching staff. They're not showing up for work. And what is the current teacher's attendance now? Number three, remove the principals from these 27 0% schools. Do not reassign them and send a message to the other principals that failure is not an option. Number four, stop the narrative of toxic schools. There will be Even the new schools all have issues. Since 1990, the district has been removing asbestos. You need to check the records and find out who is not doing their job. Start firing people, not relocating them. In closing, in 5 years, you will not be here on the board. We do not need 5 more years of a dysfunctional school district. Yesterday, the district attorney said that there is a direct correlation between student achievement and crime. Board of Education, along with your 5-year goals and guardrails, do something now. Thank you. And thank you for the comments of the reports I made.
Cecilia Thompson.
Can y'all hear me?
We can. You can begin.
Sorry
Thanks.
about that.
That's okay. Thanks.
I would like to talk about, I'm in support of the goals and guardrails because they include 2 of my favorites, welcoming and supporting schools and partnering with parents and family members. I'm especially encouraged that students living with exceptionalities receiving special education services and struggling learners are part of the rubric for overall student achievement and academic performance. For the last 16 years, I have participated in many attempts at capturing student achievement. I'm looking forward to the report card from the district on the achievement of students receiving special education supports and services. My question is, what are the consequences for those students, for those schools, who fail our children with special needs who do not make the grades? And the answer should not be professional development as the remedy. Our precious babies cannot afford to wait while an adult takes time to boost their learning curve. If the data supports our students needing special education supports and services need to have competent and capable individuals providing education and not using their exceptionality as excuse for lack of progress. That's all I want to say for right now. Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to share. And again, I'm looking forward to this new format with the goals and guardrails, as well as the new way that the board will be communicating with the public in 2020. And if I don't see anybody, happy holidays to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Carla Milius.
Hello?
Yes, you can start. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Carla, and I'm a student at Northeast Madden and a member of the PBSA. I stand with the Philly Black Student Alliance in calling for the 2 student representatives on the Board of Education to be given voting rights. It is crucial that students be given the power to help decide the fate of their own education. What we are doing, what you do, it all affects them, and we demand that they are no longer ignored. 70% of the students that attend Philadelphia public schools are Black and brown. That being said, shouldn't the Board of Education reflect that? And yes is the correct answer. I demand that there is more inclusivity and diversity within this board. Not only that, but they have the best interest for us students. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam President, that brings us to the end of this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. And I see my camera's not on. I'm getting a message that the host has stopped my video. Start my video. Okay, thank you. It's been corrected. Before we begin voting on this month's action items, the board will hold its annual organization meeting where we'll vote on the board's officers for 2021. I'd like to ask our board secretary, Dr. Hyde, to lead this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Would anyone like to make a motion to nominate anyone for the position of board president?
Dr. Hyde, I would like to make a motion that given the fact that we will be welcoming 3 new board members early in the new year, that our board keep its current leadership structure with Joyce Wilkerson continuing as board president and Leticia Ahea Hinton continuing as vice president. And then I would then propose that we hold an organization meeting in March of 2021, or once the new board members have officially joined the board.
Thank you, Board Member Wong. It's been moved by Board Member Wong to keep the current board leadership structure as is. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been
Second.
moved and seconded that the board keep its current leadership structure. Ms. Wilkerson, if the motion passes, would you continue to serve as board president?
Yes.
Ms. Ahea Hinton, if the motion passes, would you continue to serve as board vice president?
Yes.
Is there any discussion or debate? And Ms. Wilkerson and Ms. Ahea Hinton, would you like to make any comments?
No, I look forward to being joined by new board members and having a reconsideration of roles and responsibilities at that point.
Likewise.
Thank you. I would now call for the board members to vote to keep its current leadership structure, with Joyce Wilkerson continuing as board president and Leticia Ahea Hinton continuing as vice president. Ms. Rao, could you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. On the motion, Ms. Danzy,
Yes.
Ms. Ahea Hinton,
Yes.
Ms. Fix Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Huang,
Yes.
Dr. McColgan,
Yes.
Dr. MacGyver.
Yes.
Thank you. By unanimous vote, Joyce Wilkerson has been elected as board president and Leticia Ahea Hinton has been elected vice president. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations to Joyce Wilkerson and Leticia Ahea Hinton as board president and vice president, respectively, maintaining that position until the new board members come on. Madam President, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Height. I propose an add-on motion that the board authorize the filing of signature cards for the elected officers of the board with the depositories of the school district, and further that the board authorize the use of facsimile signatures for the elected president, vice president, and the filing of these signatures where required. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, board members. Before we begin our discussion and vote on action items, I'd like to bring to your attention to action item 29, which is the revision of board policy 004.1, school board committees. This action item is on tonight's agenda for public review and will be considered at the January meeting. To align our work with goals and guardrails we've presented today, the board is considering revising our policy to maintain policy committee and eliminate the other committees. This monitoring of our goals and guardrails will be done by the full board at each of our monthly meetings. Starting in January, you'll see board spending a significant amount of time of our meetings monitoring goals and guardrails per the monitoring calendar that's listed as a part of action item 28 on tonight's agenda. Each board member will serve as the facilitator for one goal or guardrail, and as facilitator, they'll be responsible for leading the monitoring discussion during that portion of the agenda. Additionally, they'll be responsible for tracking and highlighting any key takeaways and follow-ups from the meeting. We'll be announcing more information on the facilitator's role in January. The schedule of board action meetings is posted on the board's website. The schedule for meetings of the policy committee are also posted on the board's website. Please check the board's website for additional information on meetings and hearing dates, locations, and structures throughout the year. It's now time for our action items. Before we begin, I want to be clear about how we'll be grouping tonight's votes. At this time, I'll only be pulling out the personnel items, action items 10 through 12, and action item 22, which is the license purchase agreement of assets with the Trust of Public Lands at James Lowell Elementary School. The items that are going to be voted on as a group are the following: action items 1 through 9, 13 through 21, and 23 through 28. As a reminder, action item 29 is on the agenda for public review only. Before we vote, does anyone want to take out any additional action items that have been proposed for the consent agenda?
I do want to talk about 18. I don't need to take it out, but I just wanted to have some clarifying conversation around 18.
All right, when we after it's been moved and seconded, we will entertain comments. First, we'll begin with the personnel action items. Board members, can I have a motion and a second to consider action items 10 through 12?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments or questions about those action items? I'm not seeing any hands go up, and seeing none. Ms. Rout, please take the vote.
Thank you, President Wilkerson. On action items 10, 11, and 12, Ms. Danzy,
Yes.
Vice President Hinton,
Yes.
Ms. Fix Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Huang,
Yes to all.
Dr. McColgan,
Yes.
Dr. MacGyver,
Yes.
President Wilkerson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Board members, can I have a motion and a second to consider action item 22, which is the Lowell Playground item?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Are there any questions or discussion on action item 22?
Yeah, I have some. I'd like to. Can I start? Is that okay? So I just want to, just a couple of things. First of all, for me, it's not about the playgrounds. I think every school should have a playground. It's about the fact that we keep talking about equity, right? I think this is a perfect example of a piece of low-hanging fruit of an action item that we can look at and analyze more and think about equity. So a couple of questions that we asked at the committee meeting last week and got answers are on our, what is the actual budget line for playgrounds? And we, the number we got was $1,175,750. I'm no mathematician, Dr. MacGyver is, so she can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like 20 or 21% roughly. That to me seems like a large amount of money. Remember, this is not a donation. So I've gotten some heat from some people, including friends of mine, on my thinking around donations, in particular around school playgrounds. Let's put that to the side. That's a whole other conversation around policy. This is an expenditure. So it's a very different thing. 21% of this budget, and then another question that we asked was, how many schools don't have playgrounds? And the number that we got is 65. That's a large number. Then we asked, or one of the other numbers that we got was 19 projects are scheduled through 2026. Okay, that's great, but that still means that if you're not one of those 19, you're looking at 2027 minimum to get anything. That's 7 years from now. And so I am no expert on capital improvements. I'm not going to pretend that I am. I do know a little bit about school playgrounds because I actually live in a neighborhood where school playgrounds have been recently built with a large majority of friends of groups and neighborhood groups that have really put money into it. But some of the things that I have, this actually goes back to the idea of equity, right? So equality would be every school should have a playground. But equity is that it's going to take different funds and different resources to get every school a playground. So some schools, it might cost $750,000 to get that playground in. In other schools, it might cost $50,000. It depends on the land improvement necessary, the water, the drainage, all of that kind of stuff. I don't know how we can, at this moment in time with such limited funds, spend $250,000 as a matching to a school that we were told has a playground. I mean, that's what the action item says. I didn't drive up to Lowell to see what they have. I did Google Map image it, and I actually don't see a playground. So I am a little confused. Is that an old image on Google Maps? Does Lowell actually have a playground or not? Is this an upgrade? I just think there's a lot of questions, but I think it goes back to the bigger thing. It doesn't matter that it's a playground. The bigger thing is the fact of what is our process for making sure that we are making equitable decisions? The whole thing that we're shifting into is trying to look at the big picture, not isolated pieces. When you look at an isolated piece, it's like, sure, let's build a playground. But when you look at the bigger picture, it doesn't make any sense to me right now in the terms of equity.
Is that do you have
I got a whole bunch more, but I'm going to give some other people time to talk.
Are there any other board members wanting to comment? I'm not seeing any hands.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't put my
Ms.
hand in the process. I'm stepping out of process. I apologize. I guess Dr. Hyde also is just thinking about what's the difference about this project in comparison to other projects in terms of the money that's being expended. And I too, I'm for playgrounds. That's not, you know, I really am. I'm just trying to understand it in terms of what's the difference. Why is it that this particular project we have, you know, the $250 matching? I'm assuming that that's something that's a requirement, but why the amount? What is different about this particular playground? And now after listening to Board Member Lopez, I'm just wondering, do they have an existing playground or not?
Dr. Height?
Yeah, I actually don't know the answer to the question of if they have an existing playground. I've been to Lowell and I know they have an asphalt space. I don't know if it's a playground. I just recall an asphalt space. With respect to the equity point, and I think it's the right point. And I think it's the right point as we think about how to expend funds moving forward. I do think, though, that in the past, we've had entities that have come to us to do things for schools. And if those entities are able to provide a source of the funding, we try to match in order to leverage their funds along with the funds we have to create something there for the school and for the school community. Lowell is in an area where there's not a lot of access to public playgrounds. I think there's a Fisher, either the playground or park that's close by that not many of the families utilize. But the thought behind the Trust of Public Land and the Water Department is that they have a set of criteria. Those criteria are based on like the acreage of a school, the amount of stormwater runoff that actually can be saved as a part or as a function of this new development. And based on that, they expend an amount of money that then is matched by the district in order to create a playground. I do think that as we move forward, we should have some sort of prioritized list, but also understand that some of the outside criteria, particularly with the water department and with other entities, those things may not match. And in this case, there was a match and Lowell was the site for the new playground. Something similar has been done to the Cramp School in North Philadelphia. Also at, I just lost the name of the other school that we just did a playground in the zip code where it's the only playground in that zip code now. But all of those were Trust for Public Land projects that we've been able to match the funds in order to leverage the funding that's coming from the external sources.
Can I ask you a follow-up with that, Dr. Hyde, about access? Like, I get that. I mean, everything, again, it makes complete sense to me, but not to shift too much, but I think there's just a lot of questions around this. You know, some of these are locked playgrounds. So the idea is the Trust for Public Land picks a place to do it, but then they're locked when it's not school time. So how does it make it much more accessible anyway, in terms of the, you know, proximity to other places? I mean, Stanton is a great example. Stanton has a 2018 playground that was partly funded by the Trust for Public Land, and it's currently locked, just as Chester Arthur. And so that's where I have a problem with these things as they become somewhat privatized public school playgrounds. And these are much bigger things. And that's kind of what I'm trying to make my bigger point is, you know, there's a lot more layers that go into this when we talk about equity. Greenfield Elementary's playground isn't locked because Greenfield Elementary doesn't have a fence, but is Lowell's going to be locked? And then at the end of the day, is it much more accessible to the public anyway? Does it actually make up for the lack of other space? So those are questions that don't need to be talked about tonight. But I guess what my point is that that's just why I can't continue to like move forward with these things when we keep saying we want to focus on equity. And this is not a criticism, you know, it's this bigger shift that we are now holding ourselves accountable to. So I feel like personally, I can't hold myself accountable to saying I want to uphold these values and then continue to vote without what I think is full information, even though it was well intended. I also do have concerns, just to put it on the table for moving forward, with matching grants. Just because something is a matching opportunity doesn't mean we always have to take it, for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's matching, but it's $200,000 more than we have to match. And so I think, I don't know what the other 19 projects are that are planned for 2026, but to me, to think about the fact that, Dr. MacGyver, 65 minus 19, in my head, I do minus 20, that's 45 plus 1, that's 46, right? That's 46 schools that aren't even going to be considered until at least 2027 is my understanding on how these plans go. So I would just say at the very least, I'd love to make a motion to table it. But
Ms. Fix-Lopez, can I add to that, because I really have to thank you for bringing this to our attention, because you've brought up some really, really good points. The piece that I kept going back to and did a little bit of research on is just the cost of the playground and how much do these playgrounds, what is the range? And what I keep coming up with is that it's $50,000 on a low end to do a commercial playground and, in a school. And if you want to include all of the, accessibility and inclusive aspects of it, it's around $150,000. And we're doing a playground that's $500,000, and that I don't.
So Dr. MacGyver, because
yes,
I am with you. I think we have to be careful. I do think it goes back to every property is very different. I mean, I can give you.
I understand that.
Yeah,
and
so we have to
my issue then is, how are we making these decisions given the
good other speakers that want to weigh in? Ms. Danzy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I one question I wanted to know was, how does the Trust for the Public Land, do they choose the area for the what school they want to do it, or do we give them a list of schools that need a playground, and then they say, okay, out of that we'll do evaluation and we'll determine which ones are feasible for being able to do?
We provide a list of candidates for a new playground. And I must add, it's not just the Trust for Public Land, it's also the Water Department that is also trying to address areas where there's large storm water runoff. So it looks like the large asphalt spaces creates lots of storm water runoffs that are also parts of these projects. And so they are a lot more than just the construction of just a playground on a property. It is, in many cases, redoing the site in some cases to reduce dramatically the amount of storm water runoff.
You said we give them the schools, right?
We have a list, and so this goes back several years, and this started, and we were trying to do 4 a year. As an example, and they asked me the question, and I said, I want every school that doesn't have a playground. That's the category of schools that are needed, and then naturally, then they overlay a map of like the storm water things, and then we look at those sites as well, and then we try to do that based on the needs of like the schools and the communities. To Board Member Fix-Lopez's point, I don't disagree with anything she said. I mean, you said, Board Member Fix-Lopez. I do think, though, that it's part of how we construct policy moving forward in terms of just kind of, are these public spaces? Are they just for schools? What conditions will need to be in place in order to lock one away from the community? I do think that, those are questions that become broader policy issues that we actually do need to tackle so that it's not on a school by school, community by community basis.
Yeah, I don't want to take
earlier. We had, I don't know if you wanted to make a motion to table, whether you want to formally make a motion to table or not. You would mention that.
I'm sorry. A board member. What would there be any impact? Sometimes when there's money, matching money, and all these grant stuff, I don't think this is a grant, right? So would there be any impact if we tabled it to figure out more on it? Like, would it delay something? Would it prevent something?
If
from
we
happening?
have a motion and a second, then we can get an answer to that question.
Yeah,
So I'll make a motion to table
yeah,
it.
Mallory, make a motion.
Ms.
I'll make
Lopez,
Yeah, I'd like to motion to table action item 22.
is it second?
Second.
And then there's a question, is there anything at jeopardy if this is tabled?
Yes.
Mr. Height is.
Yeah, that's my question.
I don't know the answer to that question. I can get it. Reggie Mr. McNeil may be on and can hopefully provide an answer to that question. I do know that air projects are also considered along with Parks and Recreation. And so the monies that TPL could be putting up, I'm not suggesting this is the case here, could be just then redirected to a community center project or a recreation center project.
Is
Mr.
will
McNeil, are you on?
Let's see if he's an attendee.
He is listed, yeah.
Yep, his hand's up. Mr. McNeil.
I'd have to unmute him probably.
Hello?
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you.
Hey, just to answer the question in regards to the impact if we don't go through with this right now at this point, the only thing that has been done was the design funds that have been spent on this from TPL. So we would just have a design on the shelf before a decision is made to continue on with the action to do the playground at that site.
So with that, it's what I'm hearing you say is that a month delay is not fatal.
No, it's not fatal.
So it's been moved and properly seconded that we table this item to get additional information, particularly with respect to the equity, the overall equity approach of the district with playgrounds. And are there any other board members wishing to comment? Otherwise, we'll vote on the motion to table. Ms. Rout?
Thank you. And the motion to table action item 22.
Yes.
Ms. Danzy,
Yes.
Vice President Henderson,
Yes.
Ms. Fix Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Huang,
Yes.
Dr. McCogan,
Yes.
Dr. McIver,
Yes.
President Wilkerson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Action item 22nd then is tabled. Our next we'll take the consent agenda. Those are action items 1 through 9 and 13 through 21 and 23 through 28. May I have a motion to consider, a motion and a second to consider 1 through 9, 13 through 21, and 23 through 28?
So
Before we do that, I know Mallory wanted to talk about 18, didn't want to pull it out, wanted to comment on 18. I wanted to comment on 18 too, so I don't know.
Well, after it's been moved and seconded, then it's appropriate to take comment. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, now it's time for comments. Any board members have comments on any of the items in this set of?
Is this the goals and guardrails?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make a brief comment because you skipped over me when
I'm
we were doing it before. No, I just wanted to express how excited I am. I know it's really, really hard through Zoom to express excitement and you don't feel the energy in the room, but we really are very excited about this endeavor and very, very hopeful that this is really going to make the difference, that start the ball rolling to make the difference that we need for our students. So I just wanted to convey that, and as well as convey my thanks to everybody that's been involved, and eager to see. I know we hear from teachers sometimes that feel like they're left out of these decisions, but we're really eager to hear your feedback and be involved as much as possible. And so thank you all for all your hard work. And I also wanted to just let you know that I have to sign off after the vote, so my apologies in advance.
All right, thank you. We'll note that in the record. And then I believe there are comments on action item 18. Ms. Fix Lopez, you have comments?
Yes, I'm more like clarifying questions for Dr. Height. Dr. Height, so we heard testimony about the expenditure for these cameras, and I understand where that's coming from. My understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that this money is coming from the CARES allotment money that is specifically for technology, and it has to be used in certain ways. Is that true?
That is true, yes.
Okay, so this is not funds that we could like take and move it somewhere easily to another pot.
That's true.
Okay, and my other, and this actually takes me back to what Dr. MacIver has been saying for quite some time, is like, this is such a learning, or it's such an opportunity for us to do things differently. And so yeah, people have reached out to me and said like, well, why would you put cameras in now? We're still, at home. We're not going to need them. But I think this gives opportunity. We've talked a lot about AP classes, or what our last student board reps talked a lot about, that AP classes are not accessible in a lot of schools across the district. And so these new pieces of technology that we wouldn't otherwise have will allow us to be more efficient and creative in the future, and how to expand some of these opportunities for schools where maybe there's not enough students for a full teacher for that, but they could use this technology. Is that accurate in assuming that this is how it all fits together?
Absolutely. And it's also how we can think differently about instruction, and to your earlier point about equity. I mean, this could also be a vehicle for providing young people who need more assistance with more targeted assistance, while others who may not need as much could also take advantage of virtual opportunities. And this is moving forward. I mean, after we at some point hopefully all come back to in person. And so this allows us greater flexibility to think about how can we utilize like what we've learned during this process to fundamentally change how we approach learning as a district.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wong?
Actually, I think Dr. MacIver had her hand up first.
All right, Ms. MacIver.
It went down and then came up. Yeah, I think I'm building on what Ms. Fix-Lopez said, and just having perhaps we can have a presentation or an understanding of what this bigger picture does look like and what our plans are, because I do worry that we'll make this investment and then it's not implemented or used to kind of catapult us into a different structure that allows us to address those issues. And so I would love for the school district to just share what the bigger picture is, not just the short term, we need to get kids back in hybrid, but we're considering it, in total in these ways.
We will schedule that for opportunities learned, so that we can get a sense of the upside of this whole COVID experience. We'll get that on the schedule and have it presented at one of the future board meetings in the near future. And with that, Mr. Wong?
Yeah, and just to pick up on that and to tie together the two action items that we've just been talking about, come January, this Goals and Guardrails framework will allow us to have those conversations centered around student achievement. I was one of the few board members that wasn't officially on the Student Achievement Committee, although I attended a few of the committee meetings. I think it's more appropriate that the entire board is about student achievement. And so this conversation about IT and how do we learn how to use this technology to improve student achievement, and to do so in an equitable fashion, in this case, greater access to resources that are scarce in a physical sense, but with technology can be made more available. That's exactly the conversation that we as a board want to have. And I think the Goals and Guardrails framework allows us to have those exact conversations teed up in a way that elevates student achievement. So very much looking forward to rolling out, approving Goals and Guardrails today, and in January kind of implementing that in terms of how we organize these conversations around specific action items.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands on the consent agenda items 1 through 9, 13 through 21, and 23 through 28. That brings us to the close of the comments. Ms. Rout, please call the vote for those items.
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Danzy?
Yes.
Thank you. Vice President Ahaya Hinton,
Yes.
Ms. Fix Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Huang,
I would like to abstain on 3 and 14 due to client work that my firm does that relates to some of the participants in those action items. And I'm a yes on everything else.
thank you. Dr. McColgan,
Yes.
Dr. McIver,
Yes.
President Wilkerson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Items 1, 2, 4 through 9, 13, 15 through 21, and 23 to 28 passed unanimously, and votes, action items 3 and 14 passed by a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more action item, but that'll be on our intermediate unit agenda. So it's now time for our speakers on general topics. As a reminder, we'll be strictly enforcing the 3-minute per speaker time limit. There's an electronic time prompt. It'll be shared as a tile on the screen. When the yellow light comes on, you'll have 30 seconds to wrap up your comments. When the red light comes on, your time is up. Ms. Rout, please call our first speakers.
Thank you. Our first 5 speakers will be Dana Carter, John Stewitz, Herbert Mohammed, Debbie Powell, and Sonia Adams.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can begin. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Dana Carter, and I am a core member of the Racial Justice Organizing Committee and Melanated Educators Collective. A few months ago, this board approved Black Lives Matter Week of Action at schools. Thank you. In addition to the board approval, we ask for you all to assure us that this not be a week solely of memorizing Martin Luther King speeches and coloring in multicultural worksheets. We ask that this year in schools that Black lives matter. Let us not dwindle that down to a phrase staff members wear on a shirt for 7 days or moments of silence before participating in oppressive speech and white supremacist pedagogy, knowingly and unknowingly. We are asking that in these schools, whether brick and mortar or virtual, that cultivating Black excellence becomes a priority in policies and practices. The reason that I personally, along with other members of the Racial Justice Organizing Committee, have come here for several years asking for support of the Black Lives Matter curriculum is because we all know historically my people were forgotten. And when I talk about this was the history, this was not decades ago. This was yesterday. This was this morning. These are the stories. These are our stories and the stories of our sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, and our own children, in addition to the stories of our ancestors. It will take more than a phrase. It will take action. We demand mandatory anti-racist training for all educators, school district staff, and all school board members. As proud as I am to have so many white people stand alongside of us in support of uplifting Black voices, it is heartbreaking to me that many of the people we are speaking to about eradicating these policies that are wrapped in the foil of systematic racism, some of these people who support these policies look just like me. All skin folk ain't kinfolk, and these pull yourself up from your bootstrap Black folk out here forgetting the stories of their grandfathers. Perhaps they are unaware of the implications of these policies, and perhaps they don't know that it is our duty to fight for our freedom, and it is our duty to win. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Stewitz.
Good evening. My name is John Stutz, and I'm here to continue the discussion about the need to extend virtual learning until every student and staff member receives the opportunity for a free COVID vaccination. Most of us are fortunate enough to be working from home during this deadly pandemic. Our students' providers, however, most of them don't have that luxury. Like many parts of the city, there are 20% positive testing rates in my school's neighborhood right now. 20%. Philadelphia has now had more than 13,000 positive cases. And now these numbers are meaning more to us. These are our students. These are our families. These are your families. Hear this, more than 10% of my 8th grade students have contracted the virus. Let that sink in for a moment. Please don't kill our students. Please don't kill our staff. Please don't kill their families. Your legacy is attached to tonight and this decision moving forward. And if it's not too much to ask, we also demand that you stop lying to our students about the free internet program that doesn't exist for families who already had the Internet Essentials program. At a previous board meeting, Dr. Hite claimed that families who previously had the Internet Essentials plan from the spring would be grandfathered into this new free PHL connected internet program. But Dr. Hite, I do believe that somebody from Comcast told you this would be true, but I have a question. Did you ever check to see if it actually was? Do we check the math? Do we monitor their progress at Comcast? I have. After spending hours upon hours on the phone with United Way, district tech support, and of course Comcast representatives, I can report back, it's a lie. Some of the same students who are battling this COVID disease are the same students who are totally unable to attend school. We claim that we have no connection to these families, but we do. However unconstitutional it may be that they're not able to attend school right now. And meanwhile, their Comcast bills are erroneously stating they owe this holy company hundreds and hundreds of dollars for an early termination fee. Comcast worthy of our praise? By no means. Worthy of our condemnation for exploiting the very people they claim to serve. Does anything mean anything here? Does your and our word mean anything to these families? It's time we did something about this. We need truly free internet for all, and the onus of responsibility for connecting these students should be on the district, not on exhausted, overworked, and sick families. We need clear scientific metrics around what would constitute a safe reopening. Don't send us into a fatal firestorm and subsequently risk more layoffs of your staff, who are your frontline employees, as a result of expensive hybrid technology and sanitizing costs. No, we are begging you to invest in your students' access to basic needs, including to internet access, but frankly also to food and housing. Our community is literally dying. Instead of acting, you're all watching. Please change that. Thank you.
Herbert Mohammed.
Is Mr. Muhammad on the line?
Mr. Muhammad is on the line. We're waiting for him to unmute.
Okay, all right. Pardon me. Good evening, everyone. Pursuant to my last testimony with the board, I mentioned about the natural allowance of choice. Well, when you go to purchase food, you choose the market. In buying a home, you choose the location and the amenities, a car, the make, the model, and the color. And don't forget, on November the 3rd, we made an appointment choice that could change our lives forever. So when I chose a school that is clean, safe, the ceilings are not falling down with asbestos and on children's heads, or there's no heat in the winter or air conditioning in the summer, why would it be an issue with you in my choice for my children's education or future? I chose Mastery Charter School at the Pickett campus for my two daughters. One now is a senior at Penn State, and her career interest is in medicine. The other is a 2020 graduate and a student at Muhlenberg, she's going to get on me about that, college. And her major is political science and dance. So why would I, as a parent, a citizen in these United States, allow anyone to take away my God-given choice? Now, I'm very happy to hear about the guardrails, student achievement, and the learning achievements. And as Dr. Hyde mentioned, the outcomes from it. All students are not going to college. I mean, it's a fact. You already mentioned it. I have 8 children, and a few of them, they didn't go to college, but they still are in line for different careers. But the only way that is brought out is from the schools and the endeavors that is put out from the instructors, from the teachers, the principals. But I'm glad to hear that. But as far as I said about school choice, I'm very satisfied. It worked. I work with things that work for me. I have a daughter. She's a teacher over 20 something years now in LA. She's not a charter school teacher. She's a public school teacher. But she also understands, she teaches, she instructs, she fills up the empty vessels with knowledge. And this is what we have to do. So my choice is charter school system. And I really appreciate speaking with you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Before our next speaker, I just want to note for the record that the board received an objection on the motion to table and the motion regarding board maintaining board leadership. The objection stated that these are walk-on motions and therefore the public has the right to provide public comment. We have reviewed that, and the motion to table is a subsidiary motion. It's procedural. It's not entitled to, it's not open for public comment. And the motion regarding maintaining current board governance is not a walk-on motion. The public had notice of the organizational meeting this evening, and by statute, that is when officers are elected. So there was sufficient public notice that that was on the agenda. And it was also noted on the board calendar that this was the organizational meeting. So with that, we will go to the next speaker, Debbie Powell.
Debbie Powell is not online.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Sonia Adams, and the group of after that is Tamir Harper, Abigail Kennedy, Ashley Smith, Marjorie Covello, and Zoe Tway.
Sonia Adams is not online.
Okay, thank you. Is Tamir Harper?
Yes.
Here? Thank you.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Good evening, board members and Superintendent Hyde and our phenomenal student representatives. My name is Tamir Harper, the current executive director of UrBED. First and foremost, I want to give praise and shout out to our student representatives. One, I know you all are in tough positions and do a tough role, and under no circumstance will we make your role harder. We will challenge you all, and hopefully we will come together to make a strategic decision that hopefully really helps the students of the school district of Philadelphia, moreover, but also the future students of the school district of Philadelphia. We have a lot of work to do, and UrBED and Philly Black Student Alliance is ready to have those courageous conversations and do the work. Board President Wilkerson mentioned the policy changes earlier, and I want to make it clear that while a huge part is giving voting rights to the student representatives, there are a lot more things that we want to address. It is outlined in a very long document that we have sent over to the board, but as well as located on our website. So we look forward to engaging in those conversations. And moreover, I know the board likes data. Even though the data is not always anti-racist, but that's a debate for a different day. I think it is important to understand that when student voice is properly placed into decisions, data shows that students are more engaged and willing to follow the direction that has been given and the decision that has been made. So as we like to use data, I call on the board to look at that data and call on our mayor and other state officials to actually have the conversations, to see the pros and cons and listen to students and alumni. But even more important than alumni, honestly, the students that are in the system now, to make the decision on the future. So we look forward to meeting with you all. Happy holidays and happy long board meeting as always.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Abigail Kennedy.
Abigail Kennedy has logged off.
Okay, thank you. Ashley Smith.
Ashley Smith is not online.
All right. Margaret Covello. I'm sorry, Marjorie Covello. I apologize. Misread that. You can start.
That's okay. That's okay. I am Dr. Marjorie Covello, CEO of Lindley Academy Charter School at Bernie. As school board members, it is important that you hear the complete story of the critical role that Lindley Academy, Renaissance Charter Schools, and all public charter schools play in educating a third of Philadelphia's students. Specifically, as you do your work, here are some important things for you to know about Lindley Academy, which I've summarized in 4 commitments. Time only permits for a brief overview of our 4 commitments, and therefore I leave the door open to any board members or district personnel who are interested in learning more in an extended conversations about Lindley Academy's commitment to our community's success. The first is our commitment to the charter renewal process. We are members of the current charter renewal cohort, and we have fully participated in the renewal process, including submitting a signed charter agreement. Second, we are committed to our families. In response to the pandemic, Lindley has prioritized quick planning in the areas of health, wellness, and continuity of education. Within 12 calendar days of the school building closure on March 16th, we had mailed academic packets to all of our 750 students. We distributed Chromebooks, textbooks, and school supplies. We had food service up and running. We serve all fresh food 5 days a week. And to date, we have served over 80,000 meals. As a critical part of our community, we are able to respond so quickly because we have relationships with our families that are based on mutual trust and respect. In written comments regarding a Lindley education, our parents share the following quotes. "I believe in the mission and appreciate the education that my child is receiving. Greatness and achievement are possible with the Lindley education. And we here at Lindley are a family. The school is a great support system in the Logan area." Our third commitment is to equity. Lindley has committed to equity work in partnership with Cabrini University. We refer to this work as Lindley's 4 steps toward equity. Our premise is that in order to support a truly anti-racist school environment, we first have to be able to talk about race and racism, not just from an academic and broad strokes perspective, but from a personal, soul-searching, up-close perspective that includes the voices of the marginalized and undervalued in our community. We have facilitated monthly cultural competency book club sessions in which all staff members participate. We host Let's Talk community forums, which to date over 300 community members have attended, and we have partnered with 4 nationally recognized speakers and facilitators on equity issues. Fourth is our commitment to high expectations and academic excellence.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Zoe. I don't know if it's Tway or Twa. I apologize. And then after that, we have Marissa Block, Kristen Campbell, Candy Adams, Keely Gray, and Barbara Dowdall. You
Hi,
can start.
It's Zoe Chue.
Thank you.
I'd like to begin by saying, how did we get to this point where there's such an obvious and harmful divide between the upper end of the school district staff hierarchy and the community? It's a crippling divide that has led us to passionate cries and demands for understanding from the district. There's an opportunity here for the board to consider the unending possibilities afforded when the Philadelphia community is able to clearly comprehend the action items that the board grapples with day in and day out. No one knows the students more nor cares more than the folks who are holding the city together. And to make it harder for them to comprehend and contribute to creating this vision and working towards it is to actively contribute to systematic oppression and the failure of this district. I'm Zoe Twet, an alumni of the School District of Philadelphia and a member of UrbEd, supporting their campaign with PBAS on student representative empowerment. We are We are past a time of tolerance for Band-Aid solutions, and the only way to address the roots of problems is to begin with thoroughly understanding the value in the community's ability to help solve them. Why even bother listing action items if each item is not broadly digestible for the community? Over time, it has become increasingly evident that a school's ability to help a child succeed in academia is heavily impacted by the involvement of the community. For students, families, student representatives, and community members alike who are striving to be active citizens in this district, their time is constantly wasted trying to break the code of the district action item after action item when they could be spending their time creating meaningful responses, ideas, constructive criticisms, and invaluable perspectives that can help you do your job well, that can help each school community feel supported, grounded, and prepared to propel their students farther than they would go alone. It is your duty to create resources that are meaningful, not for show. This is your opportunity to be about the business of transparency. No games, just quality work ethic, agency, and humility. Help us help you. We are simply asking the Board of Education to be transparent, to have action items written in layman's terms and translated in different languages. It is easy to say that you value the community, that student voice matters, but your actions loudly say otherwise. If your intention is to create the greatest version of the school district possible, that is safe, supportive, and useful for students of all backgrounds, then you must put in the work to ensure that the decisions being made regarding the shaping of the district and changes going forward are made together. Value us through your actions. If you value our contribution to this city and this district, if you value our intellect, diversity, and passion, then you will make sure we feel welcome in this space, that you make information accessible, that you allow us a seat at the table to be seen and heard. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Marissa Block.
Marissa Block has logged off.
Thank you. Kristen Campbell.
Hello.
Yes, you can start. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Campbell. I'm the reading specialist at Shepherd Elementary. I came before the board in the spring and am here again to reiterate some points. I am asking that when the CSPR committee brings their decision to the board, that the choice be made to keep Shepherd open with expanded boundaries and more resources. If we relocate or repurpose our building, our students will be forced to go to a school that is further, more crowded, with high teacher turnover and lower scores. The SPR overall for Shepherd in the 2018-19 school year was 33% and growing according to our progress score. For the other school, it was 15%. This is not a difference of a few points, but half. If you look at the trend in 3 years prior, you will see the same. Of the schools being evaluated in our cycle, only 3 of the 7 have preschools, and there are less than 175 students enrolled. It is an area that serves thousands of students. Wouldn't it benefit our students to add more preschools to support the academic, emotional, and social foundation they need? Preschool actually saves money in the long run. Over the years, our boundaries have been made smaller and smaller several times. This has led to our enrollment and funding decreasing. However, in this time, a strong staff and community has remained and thrived. I have only been at Shepherd for 3 years, but I have taught for almost 20 years in public, non-public, charter, suburban, and New Jersey schools. I will continue to drive almost an hour and a half each way every day to work in Kensington because of the climate and community at Shepherd. But this is not about me. How would your child feel if every single teacher and staff member knew him when he walked into the building for years and years of elementary school? The self-esteem and security this child feels cannot be replaced. At Shepherd, we have art and music provided by resources outside of the school district, and after-school activities such as soccer and scouts because of our staff and our teachers. Low teacher turnover, relationships among school and community, and generations that come back with their children and grandchildren is a huge asset that is overlooked. Why? If our city and this neighborhood specifically is going to thrive, we need to look beyond data, money, and numbers. Please consider increasing our boundaries and resources and let Shepherd remain for future students. Thank you.
Candy Adams.
Candy Adams isn't online.
Thank you. Keely Gray.
Good evening. My name is Keely Gray, and I am a teacher at Shepherd. While it is true that there have been no CSPR Planning Committee meetings since spring, we do know that some CSPR-related projects have been going on recently and that planning meetings will resume in the very near future. We believe in being proactive. 9 days before COVID shut down in-school instruction for our students and changed our world as we knew it, Shepherd had an impressive showing at a community forum, where parents, community members, and staff members made it clear that closing Shepherd is not what the community wants, and it is not what is best for the children. Some people have expressed confusion as to why we are using the word closure when engaging in this process. The answer is twofold. First, unfortunately, we have been down a similar road before. Back in 2012, we proved to the SRC that we should remain open. When deciding to keep our school open, one member said that he, quote, felt very strongly that they should try to do no harm. Another stated that the district should support rather than dismantle our school and schools like ours. We are still waiting on that support, by the way. Secondly, we are aware that no official recommendations have been made and that in no document will you find the word closure. However, what you will find are proposals that include words like relocate, co-locate, reassign, and repurpose. We all know that these are just fancier, less threatening ways to say closure. We are aware that the district is in financial trouble, but closing Shepherd is not the answer to the district's problems. One priority of the CSPR process is to avoid adversely impacting any specific community. If you close Shepherd, you will be adversely impacting the students. You'll be choosing to send them to a lower performing school on a longer route that cannot be described as safe. You'll be actively harming the community in which they live by taking away a hub for positivity, safety, and education. The community around Shepherd faces a multitude of challenges, and theirs was one of the hardest hit by the pandemic. Now, more than ever, our students need stability. It is important to remember that just because we can do something does not mean that we should. Yes, we can fill schools to capacity using every single square inch and putting 37-year-olds in a classroom. But should we? Before COVID-19, I would argue that is not what is best for our students educationally. Now, it is not in their best interest in terms of education or safety. Not to mention the school that would receive our students does not even have enough room for them. Shepherd is open to change. We have offered suggestions. The district shrunk our boundaries years ago and now is concerned about enrollment. We have suggested returning our boundaries to what they were. We have suggested adding pre-K and 5th grade, which would align with another one of the priorities of CSPR. This process claims to be collaborative, but we have yet to see any of our suggestions taken into serious consideration. The school district's vision is for all children to have access to a great school close to where they live. The students at Shepherd have that. Instead of possibly taking that away, why not support us? Give our students the resources that they need and deserve. Invest in our students and their future.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Barbara Dowdall, and then the group after that is Mama Gail Clouden, Leah Clouden, and Marianne Nasuti. Is Barbara Dowdall here?
Dowdall.
Dowdall.
Dowdall is my
I'm sorry,
name.
I always get it wrong.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go for the first syllable. In fond memory of our teacher and activist colleague, Ken Durstein, beautifully memorialized in the public school notebook, who early informed and warned all who care about our public schools in Philadelphia about the privatization game plan fueled by public school graduate and billionaire Eli, looks like Broad, but pronounced Toad. I recommend simply web searching Eli Broad Superintendent for the comprehensive group of articles revealing his private fortune-funded assault on American public schools. There, not oddly enough, from our current superintendent, a proud graduate, I assume, of the Broad Academy, nor his immediate predecessor, another Broad acolyte and implementer, you will learn of the grand plan nationwide, not just for Lucky Fluffia, to undermine, by dint of strategic churn, That includes Boston, yes, Boston Consulting Group reordering of school organization charts, a confusing and ever-changing array of expensive corporate curricula, district-wide shuttering of school libraries, and dismissal of certified teacher librarians, tax-advantaged millionaire, random, fickle funding of the fortunate few, and massive shuttering of neighborhood schools. A second round of shuttering, apparently already in the works, with COVID-19 providing cover. Fair warning, do avoid clicking on www.broadcenter.org. The message there, warning, potential security risk ahead. Thank you.
Mama Gail.
Peace and blessings. You know, it's really interesting to sit and listen to all that I've heard. And we've had problems getting on recently, and that's why you hadn't heard from us. We've been on WRD AM every Friday, Horace and I, on Brother Shamari's show called Groundings, talking no more 0%. So we've been talking on there, but also in doing that, there are places that we've been censored, it seems, as well. When I hear the terminology, and I'm mentioning it because I had never, ever, in all the years that I've spoken at the school district, it was not until Dr. Height's administration that I've been constantly, over periods of time, going through the part where I couldn't speak, where I was blocked from speaking, whether he knew or didn't know. When I hear terminology like goals and guardrails, it's amazing to me because it's new terminology, new excitement. Do you know how I feel at 65 years old, having been involved over 30 years in this Philadelphia school district? It hurts so much when I hear another group of people talking about 5 more years. I said to Dr. Ackerman, bless her soul, when she first came here, 5 more years. Our children don't have that kind of time. And here we are, 5 years, 9 years, and here we go again, doggone it, with 5 more years. How long? In 2015, the United Nations said, this is the decade of the descendants of those that were brought across the water. How much longer do people think God is going to allow this to keep happening? How long? Dr. Height, I said to you a few years ago, we have never seen the storm that will hit Philadelphia. That's what God showed me if children were not treated right. And I'm paraphrasing now. I was told that these are some of the most special children that God has ever sent to this plane. And I'm saying to you all, we owe them better. A few weeks ago, a few months ago, people were talking, no confidence, Dr. Height. Over 2,000 people signed a petition. I saw in 2011, if I'm not mistaken, Prince George County said no confidence. I said to you, Dr. Height, a few years ago, Dr. Height, I love you, but you are not the superintendent for Philadelphia. And I mean that. TM Pierce, we were at TM Pierce a few months back before COVID, and they were painting the building and they were.
Leah Clouden.
Greetings. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can start.
Okay. I just wanted to follow up with what my father said earlier about the failures across the board, the 0%. And I'm sorry, I'm just coming off of what my mom just said, so I'm trying to get my thoughts together. But you, in that presentation that y'all presented, it says tools to reach their fullest potential. How can students reach their fullest potential when you have so many failing schools? Even in college and career, are y'all even preparing the children for jobs? Because if you have so many failing schools, how is it possible that they will be college and career ready? So far as student achievement, you need to clean house. It's time to go in those schools and find out which teachers are not showing up to work and fire them. You have a year. I believe you just extended the teacher's contract for 1 year. You have a year to get it together and actually fire these teachers. Decide what you're going to do at the end of the year. But that is the direction you need to go into, and stop pushing it off on these children and these parents. They are still the same parents that also received education in your public school system. So in order for the children to fully reach their potential, you also have to start hiring a staff that represents the different ethnicities within the school district. We need to go back to affirmative action. If you have 44% Black students or African-American students, I don't want to say people of color, because I believe we all deserve our own identity. And it's time to get away from that people of color, because once again, we will not be represented as African-Americans. And we need to hire according to our demographic. It's only fair. And the same thing with contracts. Stop just giving the minority contracts that little 5 or 10 or 15% that you give them. Give them a fair share. We need a fair share across the board, equality across the board, and we all need to be represented. We don't call, and I don't mean disrespect to white people, but we don't say people of no color and people of color. So it's time to start identifying who we are and represent who we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker for the evening is Marian Nasuti. Is Marian Nasuti being unmuted?
Yes, we're waiting for them to unmute their line.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can start. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marian Nasuti, and I'm a school psychologist assigned to Isaac Shepherd School. The first thing I would like to say is that Candy Adams is one of our parents, and she had been waiting 3 hours, and I don't know what happened, but she is here. So if you could get her on after me, I would really appreciate it. This is my 5th year at Shepherd. However, my assignment requires me to travel to many other schools to complete evaluations. The reason I'm telling you this is because going to other schools make me realize what is so special about Shepherd that I do not see in the other schools. My colleagues, Miss Gray and Miss Campbell, talked about all the reasons why we want to keep Shepherd open. There are the obvious reasons, but I would like you all to think about how are the reasons that make Shepherd not only a trauma-informed school, but a school that directly addresses the effects of trauma. Traumas are frightening, often life-threatening or violent events. Children's reactions to trauma can interfere considerably with learning and behavior at school. According to the National Association of School Psychologists, a trauma-informed school is a school informed about and sensitive to trauma and promotes physical, social, and emotional safety in students, and understanding among staff about the impact of trauma and adversity on students, access to mental and behavioral health services, and effective community collaboration. How does Shepherd do this? Because of our close relationships between students and staff, we provide social and emotional safety. Because our staff either live in the neighborhood or have worked at Shepherd so long, they understand the impact of trauma and adversity that is unique to the area of the city. While our school has not been afforded outside behavioral supports because of our small size, our counselor worked tirelessly to get those outside behavior supports through a grant. In fact, many of our programs have been attained by hard work by our staff partnering with various groups. These include bongo, which is a type of drumming, art through the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, Zumba through a community organization, and music through Philly Pops. What is important is that all of these activities can be therapeutic for trauma exposure. In fact, research demonstrates that drumming in particular promotes a connection of different parts of the brain, which is healing for trauma. Finally, there is a sense of community at Shepherd. As I mentioned, community organizations partner with Shepherd for activities. Most importantly, Shepherd is a family-oriented school that hosts many family nights, such as bingo, raffle, to name a few. We are not only a school, we are a community. I plead with the board to reconsider closing Shepherd for all of the reasons I stated above. And if we can please get Ms. Adams on, that would be helpful too. Thank you very much.
I see Ms. Adams was signed up as speaker number 31 and we couldn't get her in. Can she speak now, please? Is she still on the line?
We have not been able to identify Ms. Adams in the room this evening to be able to have brought her on.
Okay.
She has sent an email to the school board mailbox earlier today. I'd be happy to enclose that as part of the record and reach out to her to troubleshoot later.
All right, thank you. We'll invite her to speak at our next meeting then. This brings us to the end, I guess, of our speakers. I now move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Education. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say yes.
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 Thank you. The meeting of the Board of Education, the action meeting is adjourned. We'll now begin the meeting of the intermediate unit. Ms. Rout, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Danzy?
Present.
Vice President Ahea Hinton?
Present.
Ms. Fix Lopez?
Present.
Mr. Huang?
Present.
Dr. McColgan noted that she had to leave earlier, so she is not part of this meeting. Dr. MacGyver?
Present.
President Wilkerson?
Present.
Superintendent Height?
I see him as speakers muted.
Okay,
I'll offer an identification though.
thank you.
Present.
Board,
Sorry.
Thank you.
Board members, before we proceed, I'd like to note that at the last meeting of the intermediate unit, when calling for a motion to approve the minutes of September 17th, I misspoke and made reference to the August minutes. And therefore, to correct this, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of both the September 17th, 2020 and October 22nd, 2020 meetings of the intermediate unit?
So moved.
May I have a second? Thank you. Board members, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. The minutes are adopted. We have one item for the IU meeting. Before we take our vote, I'd like to note for the record that IU item 1, contracts with various vendors for the provision of child find identification and equitable participation of services pursuant to IDEA to non-public schools located in Philadelphia has been withdrawn. May I have a motion then and a second to approve IU item 2?
Second.
How about a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Are there any questions or comments on that item? I don't see any hands. Ms. Rout, please call the roll.
Thank you. Ms. Danzy?
Yes.
Vice President Ahea Hinton?
Yes.
Ms. Fix Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Huang?
I am abstaining due to client work that my firm does involving at least one of the participants in this action item.
Thank you. Dr. McColgan? Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. McColgan is not here. Dr. MacGyver?
Yes.
And President Wilkerson?
Yes.
Thank you. IU2 passes by a vote of 6 in favor, 5 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the board, I'd like to invite you to the next month's action meeting, which will take place on January 28th, 2021 at 5 p.m. Please continue to check our website and social media for updates on these meetings. On behalf of the Board of Education, I want to wish you all a safe and happy holiday. I now move to adjourn this meeting of the Board of Intermediate Unit 26. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say yes.
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 Thank you, everyone. The meeting of the IU is adjourned. Have a good night and stay safe, please.
Night.